Chapter 969. Yi Qinghan's eyes glinted coldly as his aura soared into the sky. His terrifying aura shook the entire sacred domain. Countless primordial beasts roared and fled. Birds blotted out the sky and covered the moon. Bai Shaoxing was locked in Yi Qinghan's arms and could not move. There was no doubt that he would kill her. Bai Shaoxing could never have imagined that the young man she had been training for half a year was actually the illustrious Yi Qinghan of the arrogant sect, the leader of the chaos verse. Bai Shaoxing had fallen in love with Yi Qinghan for the sake of his supreme talent and had spent the past half a year pouring all of her emotions into him. She had even experienced the love between a man and a woman, but Yi Qinghan had actually wanted to kill her. Two streams of tears flowed uncontrollably as she looked at her father's merciless gaze. She suddenly felt like she had nothing left to live for. Yi Qinghan could feel Bai Shaoxing's will to die and could not help but frown. His goal was not to kill her but to use her as a hostage to escape. "I won't kill you. I just need your father to give in. Don't show any flaws and don't ask for death. Otherwise, your father will really give up on you." Yi Qinghan transmitted his voice hoarsely. You're not just Yi Qinghan. You're also the Azura King, right?" Bai Shaoxing's body trembled as she transmitted her voice back. Yi Qinghan's left fingertips twitched as his eyes flashed with killing intent. He did not expect Bai Shaoxing to see through his identity. "You want to kill me? You want to silence me? Kill me. I only want to die." Bai Shaoxing felt like her heart was being cut by a knife as tears streamed down her face. "I'm not. Miss Bai, you've mistaken me for someone else." Yi Qinghan firmly denied it. Whether Bai Shaoxing would say it or not, he would not admit it. Bai Shaoxing did not say anything else as she allowed Yi Qinghan to lock her neck. Her divine power was imprisoned and she could not resist. Deep in her heart, she did not want to resist. Bai Yelu and the others pressed on, but Bai Fengyun did not want to sacrifice her sister to capture Yi Qinghan. "Father, I only have one sister. Let him leave the sacred domain first and exchange for her." Although Bai Fengyun respected his father, he wasn't blindly filial. At this moment, he was very firm in his attitude and hoped to save Bai Shaoxing. Yi Jingxing, the realmling, was one of the most popular youths in the myriad law domain to dual cultivate with Bai Shaoxing. At this moment, he was also unwilling to see Bai Shaoxing die, so he respectfully requested, "Martial uncle, it's not worth it to give up on Bai Shaoxing for Yi Qinghan. We can take a step back and let him leave the myriad law domain first. We can promise that we won't interfere with his matters with Demon God Mountain, but he must release Bai Shaoxing. Is that all right?" The three elders had watched Bai Yelu grow up, and they were unwilling to exchange her life for Yi Qinghan's. It was not worth it, and they all tried to persuade Bai Yelu. Bai Yelu stared at Yi Qinghan and said sternly, "Yi Qinghan, as long as we leave the myriad law domain, you must release Bai Shaoxing no matter what happens outside. Do you agree?" Yi Qinghan secretly heaved a sigh of relief and nodded. "No problem. As long as we leave the myriad law domain, I will immediately release Miss Bai. Now, please step back. If someone attacks us, I won't be the only one to die." Bai Yelu waved his hand, and everyone stepped back. Yi Qinghan escorted Bai Shaoxing forward. Half a day later, the group returned to the Myriad Arts Unification Sect's martial arts arena. The four battle constitutions looked at Yi Qinghan with disdain and said, "The number one expert of the insane sect actually learned to use a little girl as a hostage. Don't you feel ashamed?" Yi Qinghan grinned and said sarcastically, "It's my honor to be besieged by so many over-gods led by the four battle constitutions and the mutated railing leopard. The battle constitutions teamed up to kill one person. You're all shameless, so why should I be?" Roar. The railing leopard roared and wanted to pounce forward to kill Bai Shaoxing, but it was stopped by the Sage King. If they killed Bai Shaoxing now, it would be equivalent to offending the Myriad Arts Unification Sect. Fellow cultivators, please give this old man some face. Once he leaves the myriad arts domain, he will immediately release my daughter. You can wait for him outside the myriad arts domain. The myriad arts domain will no longer interfere in your affairs. Bai Yelu's eyes flashed as he signaled to the Sage King. The Sage King understood what Bai Yelu meant. Without hesitation, he led his battle constitutions out of the Myriad Arts Unification Sect and returned to the exit of the Myriad Arts Unification Sect. Yi Qinghan brought Bai Shaoxing with him to be vigilant. He took a step into the air and rushed out as well. It was a race against time. They had to rush out of the Myriad Arts domain before the Sage King and the others. However, with Bai Shaoxing affecting their speed, it was difficult to beat the Sage King and the others in terms of speed. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Dozens of figures chased after each other, drawing long rainbows in the sky above the 10,000 law domain. The domain entrances between the major cities were all opened, and the experts arrived at the exit of the 10,000 law domain in advance, sealing off the surroundings. Do you have the confidence to escape? Bai Shaoxing couldn't hold back and asked the question in his heart. Yi Qinghan was silent and only cared about flying. It was almost impossible to escape from today's desperate situation. However, he couldn't really rely on Bai Shaoxing as a threat to force him to stay in the Myriad Arts domain. Bai Yelu's eyes told him that he would really give up Bai Shaoxing's life for the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger. At that time, the two forces would join hands and there would be no chance. Bai Yelu, Bai Fengyun, and the others were not far behind Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan began to slow down and adjust his state, preparing to fight to the death. Time passed little by little. The Sage King led a large number of experts to block the exit of the Myriad Arts domain, quietly waiting for Yi Qinghan to appear. No matter what price we have to pay, we have to keep Yi Qinghan here. It's best to capture him alive as he's the most valuable. However, if we have no other choice, we have to kill him on the spot. The Sage King gave a death order. They had to keep Yi Qinghan here at all costs. Yes. The four battle constitutions nodded. The desolate railing leopard growled, "We agreed before we came that I wanted his bloodline. Now that he's captured alive, what should I do? If we can capture him alive, we'll compensate you in other ways. You can choose anything from the demonic god mountain apart from the demonic god cannon," the Sage King replied. Only then did the railing leopard relax and wait for Yi Qinghan to appear. After a long time, Yi Qinghan appeared at the exit with Bai Shaoxing. There were at least 30 over-gods, for battle constitutions, the railing leopard, and the Sage King. If he couldn't win this battle, he probably wouldn't be able to escape. Bai Shaoxing, who was in his arms, suddenly laughed. He looked up at Yi Qinghan and said, "Actually, you can try using my life to threaten my father and get him to help you leave." Yi Qinghan snorted and coldly replied, "Your life isn't worth him risking his life against the demonic god mountain. It's not even worth a great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger. I'm not that stupid. I even suspect that he'll kick you when you're down after letting you go. He, that's for the best. It's best if we die together. You bastard, you touched my body and you saw everything. Dying together with you wouldn't be considered as ruining my reputation." Bai Shaoxing rebuked angrily. However, it seemed like he wanted to die together with Lin Fan. "Sorry, my life is very valuable. If you want to die, you can wait until you die. I won't die here." Yi Qinghan replied unhappily. "You heartless man. You're indeed the Azura King. You're just a bitch. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone that Yi Qinghan is the Azura King. As long as you don't die, this will be a secret between us." Bai Shaoxing snorted. Yi Qinghan did not refute. He gently leaned over and leaned on her neck. He took a deep breath and teased, "Not only are you big and white, but you also smell good. Most importantly, you're quite smart to be able to guess my identity. However, you'd better stay smart and not tell anyone about this. Otherwise, the maniac sect and the unifying sect will fight to the death. You don't want the maniac sect to lead a large group of experts to kill your family, right? Chapter 970. Bai Xiaosheng's body stiffened. He was infuriated by Yi Qinghan's teasing and disdainful tone. Thinking back to the day when he was stripped naked by Yi Qinghan, he had spent half a year with Yi Qinghan. Wasn't that the same as running around Yi Qinghan naked? Bastard, I wish you a good death. You'll be stabbed to death by swords, chopped to death by blades, and devoured by the railing leopard. Bai Xiaosheng cursed in exasperation. Ha ha ha, I'm so lucky that even hell can't take me away. I'll still be able to escape today. Watch me break through the 9 heavens with my blade. Yi Qinghan laughed loudly. His aura surged, and he was unwilling to lower his head in the face of countless powerful enemies. With that, Yi Qinghan pushed Bai Xiaosheng away and forced a large group of experts out. Yi Qinghan brought Bai Xiaosheng out of the infinite law domain and kept retreating while facing the Sage King and the others. Let go of my sister. My infinite law domain will no longer interfere in your matters. Bai Fengyun stepped forward and stared at Yi Qinghan as she said in a deep voice. Yi Qinghan maintained a distance of dozens of meters from the group, and there were more than 10 overgods 100 meters behind him. On his right was the infinite law domain's barrier, and on his left were dozens of experts. There was no need to talk about the front. It was too difficult to break out of here. Swish! Yi Qinghan pushed Bai Xiaosheng towards Bai Fengyun, and his figure flashed as he rushed to the back. Whoosh! He tore through the void, and his blade chi shredded everything. He wanted to break through the defense behind him and leave this hopeless situation. Swish swish swish. After Bai Fengyun rescued Bai Xiaosheng, she immediately returned to the entrance of the infinite law domain. The Sage King, along with the 4 great battle constitutions and the railing leopard, shattered space and charged towards Yi Qinghan. Boom! Yi Qinghan paid no attention to the people behind him. His divine power poured out, and his aura soared into the stars, sending the dozen or so chief gods flying. However, his own body couldn't withstand the terrifying force of the impact, and he was sent flying backward. Open! Yi Qinghan was in midair. He twisted his waist and slashed his long saber horizontally, attacking the Sage King and the others indiscriminately. Boom! Boom! Dozens of attacks collided with Yi Qinghan's long saber at the same time. The shockwave sent his unstable body tumbling to the ground, and he was sent flying thousands of meters away. Great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger. Sword rainbow pierces sun and moon. Swish. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Everyone's attacks were the fiercest. Outside the edge of the 10,000 law domain, blade lights and sword shadows flashed, rainbows pierced through the sky, and air currents swirled. It was extremely terrifying. Boom! Boom! Ka ka ka. The sound of the void shattering could be heard incessantly. Each attack could kill hundreds of half-step lords. Yi Qinghan got up from the ground. He didn't even have time to wipe away the blood at the corner of his mouth. He slashed again with his saber, but he was quickly sent flying again. After being sent flying, he quickly got up again. The sanctified physical body's ability to withstand attacks was indeed powerful. After being sent flying more than 10 times, Yi Qinghan's clothes were tattered, and he was in a sorry state. However, the Sage King and the others grinned coldly, mocking him with disdain. Yi Qinghan, there's no way you can escape today. If you're smart, you'd surrender now. Otherwise, I'll beat you until you kneel and beg for mercy, the Sage King said coldly. Yi Qinghan stood tall on the ground, sword in hand. He was in a sorry state. It was not that he wasn't powerful enough, but there were too many powerhouses. A cold glint flashed. Yi Qinghan grew calmer and calmer, thinking about how to deal with this situation. There were too many opponents, and he had the most divine power. Even if he spread his divine power, he could only disperse their attacks. However, it would consume more than 10 times their divine power. If this continued, his injuries would accumulate, and he would be the one to die in the end. Fight one at a time. Kill one at a time. Yi Qinghan clenched his fists and decided on a countermeasure. Even if one of the powerhouses attacked his vitals, he would kill one at a time until they were afraid. Boom! 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 Yi Qinghan's dragon blood boiled. The 10,000 Buddha's pagoda protected his heart, the metal origin protected his internal organs, and the fire origin was attached to him. He waved his flame origin to replace his tattered divine robe. His aura soared as he borrowed the power of heaven and earth. The powerhouses of the myriad law realm looked at Yi Qinghan in shock. They were both over-gods, but Yi Qinghan's battle prowess was a little too terrifying. Bai Shaoxing nervously clenched her fists and asked excitedly, "Big brother, do you think he can escape?" "He can't. He's indeed very strong, but it's impossible for him to escape from the combined forces of the Railing Leopard and the Sage King. Moreover, there are so many over-gods around." "There's no hope at all," Bai Fengyun replied decisively. Bai Xiaoxing's face was a little pale. She wanted to say something, but she didn't. She knew that her status couldn't be compared to Bai Yelu's. Bai Yelu wouldn't listen to her, so she gave up struggling. At this moment, Yi Qinghan mobilized the 5 elements to form the 5 elements battle dragon. His physical body transformed into a dragon, and he crazily swept through space and time, spiraling upwards and tearing the earth apart. Roar! A 10,000 feet long true dragon appeared. Its dragon might covered the sky and earth, and its dragon body covered the sun. He's a giant dragon race's transformation expert. The powerhouses of the myriad law realm were shocked. The Railing Leopard was also startled. It didn't dare to breathe under the pressure of the monster race's superior aura. Boom! Yi Qinghan swung his huge dragon tail, wanting to get rid of some of the messy small fries. He directly swept across thousands of miles. Hua hua hua. Space constantly collapsed and shattered. The Sage King's finger seemed to be able to imprison heaven and earth, and everything within thousands of miles was within his attack range. Everyone used their strongest moves, wanting to break Yi Qinghan's attack. Boom! Dozens of attacks gathered together, soaring into the starry river. Sand and sand were swept up, blocking one's vision. Bang bang bang. After the 10,000 feet long divine radiance, dozens of figures were sent flying, crashing into the ground and creating deep trenches. The huge dragon body collapsed mountains and rivers. Yi Qinghan's dragon tail was directly pierced through by the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger. Blood dyed the sky and earth. Yi Qinghan reverted to his original body as he rolled. A hole appeared in his leg bone, and blood flowed non-stop. The order of his physical body was scattered, and he couldn't recover from his injury. Humph! Yi Qinghan climbed up and stabbed his long blade into the ground. He wiped his wound with his big hand. Blood no longer gushed out, but the wound was still shocking. The dozens of master gods that were sent flying by Yi Qinghan weren't in a good state either. Their divine bodies were almost smashed, and their blood was in turmoil. They couldn't mobilize it, and they lost their ability to fight on the spot. Yi Qinghan looked coldly at the people of Demon God Mountain. His hair was dyed red with his own blood essence. Blood dripped down from his arm, dripping onto the heavy blade and flowing along the blade, constantly smashing into the dust. Let's see if you have more blood or my Demon God Mountain has more people. If I want to kill you, it's just a matter of waving my hand. But since you're a talent, I hope you can lead the insane sect to submit to Demon God Mountain. Otherwise, I would have killed you long ago. Don't be so shameless. The Sage King coldly reprimanded. My insane sect will not submit to anyone, nor will we become anyone's tool. Whether it's Demon God Mountain or the Sorcerer Tribe, it's not realistic. Today, I can die in battle, but you definitely won't capture me alive. You definitely won't use my life to threaten the brothers of the insane sect. Yi Qinghan firmly replied. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan let go of the heavy blade and took a small step back. He formed a seal with his palms, and the top-grade fire origin burned in all directions. The flames turned into a dragon, and then into a giant. Fire burning the 9 heavens. Boom boom boom. Streams of fire swept up the heaven and earth, rushing in all directions as if they wanted to burn the heavens. Their aura was not inferior to a true dragon at all. Bai Yelu frowned and stared at Yi Qinghan with a questioning gaze. This was clearly the 10,000 arts returned to one sect's divine ability. How did Yi Qinghan know it? Chapter 971. Bai Yelu's stare made Bai Xiaoxing's hair stand on end, and he dared not look him in the eye. Bai Fengyun looked at his sister and sighed secretly. Yi Jingxing's expression did not look good either. Whoosh! Flames burned the sky, covering thousands of miles. The Lord-level fire origin could burn everything. Even the space around them was burned to the point of collapse. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and turned into a dragon, sweeping across thousands of miles. He took the initiative to kill the weaker lords and clean up the battlefield. Kill! A furious roar reverberated between heaven and earth like a clap of thunder, swallowing mountains and rivers. Yi Qinghan stepped on the fire dragon, shattering the clouds. He charged forward aggressively with heavy weapons in hand, causing the heroes to tremble in fear. Tumbling clouds and splitting sun palm. Boom boom boom. The Holy Lord King's palm tore the sky apart as if he wanted to destroy time and space. He was so powerful that it was as if the chaos god of war had reappeared. Black Tiger Roar. Roar. Tiger Liang turned into a primordial black tiger that was incomparably huge. His roar shattered the clouds, and the timid ones were sent flying while coughing up blood. Even the half-step lords did not have the strength to do so, and they all retreated thousands of miles away. The flames swept across thousands of miles like a dragon. A few lords did not manage to escape in time and were directly engulfed by the flames. Apart from a few super-existences like the Battle Constitution, there were very few who could resist Yi Qinghan's flames. Ah! Shrill screams tore through time and space. The furious roars of the lords changed the color of heaven and earth. They struggled in the flames, and even their souls were burning. The heart-wrenching pain made them despair. No matter how strong their divine power was, they could not extinguish the flames on their bodies. Shrill. Miserable. Despair. Fear. All kinds of negative emotions filled the surroundings. The experts of the myriad law domain blocked the flames with a boundary. Moreover, it was because of the joint efforts of Bai Yelu and the others. They discovered that Yi Qinghan's battle strength was too terrifying. If they only relied on the 4 great battle constitutions, they absolutely wouldn't be able to keep him here. Unfortunately, there was an additional Sage King, a variant Railing Leopard, and the restless 10,000 Arts Unification Sect Master Bai Yelu. Yi Qinghan's chances of escaping were 0. Yi Qinghan also understood the situation he was in. At this moment, he was filled with the will to die. His saber shattered the attacks of several experts, but he was sent flying by the Holy Sovereign King and Tiger Liang. The flames on his body dissipated, and his divine power stagnated. He rubbed a deep trench into the ground and tore it apart violently, stabilizing himself with great difficulty. At the center of the battlefield, apart from Yi Qinghan, the 4 war constitutions, the Holy Lord, and the Railing Leopard, there was no one else. The other small fries were scared away. They simply couldn't withstand the heart-devouring flames. Without so many small fries stirring up trouble, Yi Qinghan climbed up from the ground and formed a seal with his palms. The Berserk Heart Mirror formed by the Berserk Heart Mirror protected his chest. Blue veins bulged all over his body, his black hair danced in the wind, and his eyes burst with towering battle intent. I was born a man. If I fight, I will fight to the death. Back then, I compromised once and my family was destroyed. In this life, the word compromise does not exist in my dictionary, let alone the word surrender. His hoarse voice reverberated in the air. Yi Qinghan stepped towards the 6 experts with his bare hands. His aura was strong to the extreme. Even though he knew he was going to die, he wanted to die a little more heroically. He didn't want to die as cowardly as he did in his previous life. The Holy Lord didn't expect Yi Qinghan's will to be so strong. For the sake of dignity, he was even willing to give up his life. With just this battle intent and battle technique, even if the great Tao returned and the yellow sky reappeared, no matter how strong the war constitutions became, they still might not be able to defeat him. The Tao hearts of the 4 war constitutions were shaking. Living in the same era as Yi Qinghan, even the war constitutions felt despair, let alone others. Bai Shaoxing looked at Yi Qinghan's terrifying aura and thought about his own progress in the past half a year. He actually didn't realize that this person was an expert and even nurtured him as a disciple. At this moment, he was so embarrassed that he didn't know how to raise his face. Yi Qinghan locked onto his target, the railing leopard. It wasn't an expert from the Demon God Mountain and had only come for the benefits. If it was scared, it would naturally give up on the benefits. However, the 4 war constitutions couldn't do that. They had collective benefits and missions, so they wouldn't retreat until they were at the end of their rope. Yi Qinghan stared at the railing leopard until its hair stood on end. It kept roaring and wanted to retreat, but it was unwilling. Roar! Boom! The railing leopard's Tao heart was in a panic. In order to stabilize its state of mind, it roared and slammed its forelimbs on the ground, causing the earth to crack and dust to fly. Kill him. Don't let him gather any more force. The sage monarch's eyes flashed coldly as he watched Yi Qinghan's aura rise bit by bit until it reached a terrifying boundary point where even the overgods couldn't resist. He knew that if this dragged on, their alliance would be crushed by Yi Qinghan's aura. Thus, he made up his mind. Great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger. Whoosh! A finger pierced through the sky as if it wanted to crush everything in front of it. No matter how the enemy tried to escape, they couldn't escape the suppression of this finger. This was the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger. It could imprison the heavens, imprison the earth, and all living beings. Everything was under his attack. It was a primal chaos level technique, the specialty of the ancient giant god. Even in the hands of the current overgods, it could still display terrifying power. Sword rainbow piercing sun and moon. Tiger roaring mountain forest. Sky raising spear. Whoosh! A bolt of purple lightning turned into a dragon that tore through the void and surrounded Yi Qinghan. The energy swept up Yi Qinghan's flaming divine robe. His black hair danced in the wind as he rushed towards the railing leopard. His finger covered the sky, shattering space and time. Great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger. Boom! Boom boom boom. Yi Qinghan crushed the earth with a single step as he dashed out like a sword, dodging the sky-raising spear and the purple lightning. His finger pierced through the clouds and descended from the sky towards the railing leopard. What? He learned the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger. How long has it been? Impossible. Bai Yelu was shocked and furious. The sage monarch was even more furious. He had spent tens of thousands of years to cultivate the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger to the initial stage. Yi Qinghan had only learned the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger for less than half a year and had already surpassed him. Boom! Yi Qinghan struck after striking. His finger pierced through space and time. The sharp finger force destroyed the railing leopard's defense. It was even more destructive than the spatial storm. Boom! The railing leopard's defense was destroyed and its fur was instantly turned into powder. The remaining fur was also uprooted. The originally purple-gold spear railing leopard had turned into a bald leopard in an instant. It was in a sorry state. Roared at the railing leopard's originally strong body became brittle. Its skin and flesh were torn apart by Yi Qinghan's finger. It was sent flying 1,000 meters away. Its body was bleeding from the friction as it screamed in pain. Boom! Although Yi Qinghan's attack hit the railing leopard, it did not manage to dodge the Sun-Moon Battle Body and Stellar Battle Body's attacks. The two of them hit the chest and the back respectively. The heart-protecting mirror formed by gravity was directly penetrated. Their powerful bodies were sent flying into the distance like a kite with a broken string. Bang! 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 Yi Qinghan's body hit the ground and bounced back up. His essence blood burned along with his flaming divine robe. The flames soared into the sky. Hua! Hiss! 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 The sound of the air burning tore through everyone's eardrums. Just when everyone thought that Yi Qinghan had lost his ability to resist, they saw him climb up from the ground and swing his iron fist at the railing leopard in the distance. Roared at the railing leopard was so scared that it turned around and fled. Its fat body shook back and forth. No one knew if it was funny or scary. Chapter 972. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. The railing leopard was scared off by Yi Qinghan's aura. It wasn't that he wasn't strong enough, but that the benefits weren't enough for him to risk his life. Only the 4 battle constitutions and the Sage King were left. They looked at each other with anger in their eyes, and their aura rose even faster than before. They had exposed their true strength. In the past, Yi Qinghan wasn't enough to make them reveal their true strength. Their true enemy was still the sorcerer tribe. But now, Yi Qinghan's strength had forced them to use their true strength. I'll show you what a true battle constitution is. Other than the supreme gods, they are the absolute sovereigns. The Sage King said hoarsely. Hua! The 3 battle constitutions of sun and moon and stars all retreated and controlled the surroundings, trapping Yi Qinghan in this territory. Only the Black Tiger battle constitution and the Sage King remained in place, but their auras were extremely strong at this moment. 2 people are enough to kill you. The Black Tiger battle constitution roared and turned into a giant tiger that was 10 feet tall. Its aura was even more terrifying than a dragon's aura, and it suppressed Yi Qinghan's aura. Yi Qinghan's eyebrows twitched slightly. He didn't expect these battle constitutions to hide their strength. Humph. So what if they hide their strength? It's enough to kill you. Boom. Boom. The surrounding space collapsed. The black tiger waved its claws and tore through the void, smashing towards Yi Qinghan. If this claw hit, Yi Qinghan would definitely be smashed to death. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan shook his body and turned into a giant that was 10 feet tall. Looking at the black tiger that was charging towards him, he waved his fist towards the black tiger's head. Boom! 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 Yi Qinghan's fist rubbed against the black tiger's head, and flames appeared along with the roar of the fire origin. At the same time, the Lord Sage formed a seal with his hands. His palm turned into a finger, and his index finger was in the air. It was like a pillar that held up the sky, rushing into the clouds. Then, divine power poured out, as if it was going to crush the world. The small regions outside the 10,000 laws domain directly collapsed. It was too difficult to resist the suppression of the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger. Whoosh! Whoosh! The great earth roared and shook, devouring the mountain range and destroying everything around it. Heaven and earth released mournful cries, all methods howling in grief. Great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger. The Sage King roared as he descended from the sky like a giant god. His gigantic finger pierced through the air towards Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan's hair stood on end as he rushed towards the huge black tiger. With a punch, he shook off the black tiger's huge claws. His waist suddenly erupted as he executed the inch strike to its limits, causing the black tiger to flip over. The black tiger flew backwards as the ground was crushed. Roar! The moment the black tiger flipped over, it clawed at Yi Qinghan's throat. Its speed was as fast as lightning. Once it clawed at him, Yi Qinghan's head would be torn off. Yi Qinghan's reaction was even faster. The tip of his foot crushed mountains and rivers, causing the earth to roar in grief. However, his body tilted as his body followed the trajectory of the black tiger's claws to the right. He reached out and grabbed the black tiger's claws. Gotcha! The extraordinary and powerful Dao body directly broke the black tiger's forelimbs and pulled it into the air. Roar! The black tiger screamed as its body was pulled around involuntarily. It surrounded Yi Qinghan in all directions, trying to block the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger. Bang! Unfortunately, Yi Qinghan's speed was a little too slow. The Lord Sage King's finger pressed on his chest. The Lord God-level armor formed by Berserk directly collapsed, and Yi Qinghan's physical body was smashed out of shape. Poof! Whoosh! Yi Qinghan spat out a mouthful of essence blood as his body flew backward. The black tiger in his hand was flung away and smashed into the ground. Boom! 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 Yi Qinghan's massive body rolled on the ground for thousands of meters. His mind was in a mess. The great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger's offensive power was simply too terrifying. His extraordinary physical body and the armor formed by Berserk actually couldn't block a single attack. The center of the armor formed by Berserk was directly penetrated. If not for the Paladin Pagoda blocking the final attack, Yi Qinghan's heart would have been crushed by the Lord Sage King. Poof! Poof! Blurg! Yi Qinghan violently vomited blood as blood spurted out of his 7 orifices. The flames on his body burned even more fiercely. Boom! Yi Qinghan reverted to his original form. His vigorous body was bitingly cold in the fierce wind, and his flaming divine robe was burning so much that it distorted the void. I'll give you one more chance. Submit or die, the Lord Sage King sternly reprimanded. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and wiped away the blood at the corner of his mouth. He hoarsely replied, I choose to fight. Whoosh! After Yi Qinghan finished speaking, he formed seals with his palms. His 10 fingers and middle finger erupted at the same time. The energy in his body poured into these 2 fingers, and the surrounding space was constantly distorted. The power of primal chaos transformed into a dragon that entered Yi Qinghan's body. Great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger. Yi Qinghan attacked the Lord Sage King with an extraordinary aura. He turned into an ancient war god that wouldn't rest until one of them was dead. Boom! 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 2 finger seals attacked from both sides. The Lord Sage King was fighting with force, and he didn't have any intention of retreating. Whoosh! The finger seals collided. Their combat strength was equal, and they dissipated into nothingness. However, the 2 of them had to endure the backlash that was enough to destroy the body of an overgod expert. The 2 of them retreated at the same time, and the ground beneath their feet constantly caved in. Whoosh! Whoosh! Yi Qinghan retreated continuously for more than 10 meters before forcefully stabilizing himself. Behind him was the sun-moon battle physique. If he got any closer, it would be tantamount to giving him meat to eat. Absolute heaven palm. Yi Qinghan's waist moved, and his body sped forward like an arrow. His fingers opened into a palm, and a sky-covering giant palm seal shattered the space. He changed his moves smoothly, and it pressed down on the Lord Sage King. The Lord Sage King was furious. He looked at the terrifying giant palm seal in the sky and was somewhat shocked. This was one of the strongest offensive moves in the myriad law domain. Moreover, Yi Qinghan changed his moves too quickly. The Lord Sage King's body was numb from Yi Qinghan's attacks, and his divine power had stagnated. He wouldn't be able to use it for a short period of time, but Yi Qinghan was actually so powerful. The Lord Sage King drew his sword, and his sword pierced through the clouds. He used the over-god weapon to stab at the giant palm seal. Boom! The giant palm seal was only formed by divine power, and it wasn't a physical body. Yi Qinghan didn't dodge, and he forcefully pressed down on the Lord Sage King, directly pressing him into the ground. However, Yi Qinghan's absolute heaven palm was also scattered by the over-god weapon. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan suddenly disappeared. He disappeared without a trace for no reason. Not good. The Lord Sage King, who had the Atlas battle physique, was the closest. He knew that the Lord Sage King's current state was very bad, and he had been smashed into the ground. On the other hand, Yi Qinghan had the Earth origin body. Sure enough, Yi Qinghan rushed into the ground and pulled the Lord Sage King deep into the ground. Boom! 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 Deep underground, Yi Qinghan repeatedly punched the Lord Sage King, smashing him into a bloody mess. The ground above constantly roared, as if there was a huge abyss demon underground that wanted to rush out of its shackles. The Lord Sage King was constantly coughing up blood from Yi Qinghan's attacks. The underground wasn't his home ground, but he still erupted with power. The over-god sword swept in all directions, and sword chi crisscrossed, creating a karst cave in the ground. The huge space was enough for him to defend himself. Yi Qinghan! Get out here for this old man! The Lord Sage King roared and began to attack upwards, wanting to rush out of the ground. Boom! Boom! Whoosh! Whoosh! The Lord Sage King's body spun at high speed and rushed into the sky. He was almost hit by the 4 over-god battle physiques. Chapter 973. Blast him out of the ground, roared the Sage King. Boom! Boom! The 4 battle constitutions attacked, turning the ground upside down. Their attacks penetrated the Earth's origin energy and took away one's life. Yi Qinghan kept dodging underground. Sword chi and spears constantly slashed past him. It was extremely dangerous. Slowly, the escaping over-gods returned and attacked the ground madly. Yi Qinghan was soon attacked, and his body plummeted. He was in an extremely sorry state. Whoosh! Whoosh! Yi Qinghan passed through the ground and rushed into the clouds. He immediately transformed into a heavenly dragon and roared. With a wave of his dragon claw, the fruit of primal chaos appeared in his hand. A fierce light flashed in his eyes as he roared hoarsely, "You forced me to do this. If I die today, none of you will escape." With that, Yi Qinghan swallowed the fruit of primal chaos in one gulp. The power of primal chaos in his body flooded his bones. At that moment, the myriad of changes of the myriad Dao minor Dao appeared in Yi Qinghan's mind. The 13 godhoods he comprehended instantly rushed into the over-god level, and all the great Dao he comprehended before reached the greater success stage. Boom! Qi rushed into the clouds, and his dragon body was about to shatter. The fruit of primal chaos was not suitable for eating at all. The energy it contained was too powerful, and it was usually used for comprehension. However, Yi Qinghan ate the entire fruit in one gulp. He was bearing too much. But there was nothing he could do. He was facing too many powerful enemies. Boom! Boom! Dragon blood burned in his body and attacked his body. His body was extraordinary, but it still could not bear the crazy impact of the fruit of primal chaos. Yi Qinghan's 2-meter-tall body was still the same, but his aura was already extraordinary. It was as if he could support the heavens and earth. His imposing back blocked the vision of the experts of the myriad law region. Apart from his back, there was nothing else in their eyes. The 4 great battle constitutions and the Holy Lord King stood rooted to the ground, forgetting to attack. Yi Qinghan could not even protect himself, let alone attack others. The fruit of chaos was so powerful that Yi Qinghan was unable to unleash his primal chaos energy. His mind was filled with the profound mysteries of the Grand Tao and incomprehensible runes, causing his soul to become somewhat muddled. Yi Qinghan's soul was extremely terrifying, but he was only able to maintain the most basic functions. He had to rely on his instincts to absorb the rest. Boom! Great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger. Whoosh! The sage monarch king's mind paused for a moment before he immediately exploded and blasted towards Yi Qinghan. He wanted to kill Yi Qinghan in his cradle. Bang! A finger pressed against Yi Qinghan's chest, sending him flying thousands of meters away. Blood spurted out like arrows, dyeing the void red. There was a huge bloody hole in his chest, but the primal chaos energy in his body was too powerful. In addition to the heavy berserk armor and the 10,000 Buddha's pagoda, the sage monarch king's all-out attack actually failed to penetrate Yi Qinghan's chest. Roar! Yi Qinghan heavily crashed to the ground, letting out an inhuman roar. At this moment, he did not feel the slightest bit of pain. His wounds were instantly healed by the primal chaos energy. Kill him! Don't let him break through. The sage monarch king's angry roar alarmed the 4 great battle constitutions. The 5 of them erupted at the same time, wielding divine weapons as they charged towards Yi Qinghan, wanting to kill him on the spot. Boom! Boom! Whoosh! Whoosh! The void constantly collapsed as divine light shot out, piercing through thousands of miles. The attack power of the 5 was enough to kill any defenseless overgod. Even if an average overgod defended, it would be difficult for them to escape death. But at this moment, they struck Yi Qinghan and even smashed him deep into the ground, yet they still could not penetrate his body. Boom! A huge crater appeared in everyone's vision. It was 1,000 feet deep, and the ground was dyed red. Is he dead? Yi Qinghan's body trembled, and there was despair in her eyes. With such attack power, even the true Lord of Gods in her eyes, her father, Bai Yelu, would die without a doubt. Could Yi Qinghan still be alive? In fact, she was not the only one asking. Everyone was wondering if Yi Qinghan was dead. Smoke and dust filled the air, blocking everyone's vision. No one knew if Yi Qinghan was dead or alive. The sage monarch king did not care if Yi Qinghan was dead or alive. He did not hold back as he continued to order, continue to kill. Don't give him a chance. Boom! Boom! The 5 experts erupted at the same time, blasting the crater once again. The aftershock spread for thousands of miles. There was no doubt that the crater could even shatter the shell of an overgod. Not to mention a physical body. The 5 of them unleashed more than 10 attacks each before they slowly stopped. Smoke and dust covered the sky, and there was already a bottomless abyss in the depths. Only when there was no sound from below did they completely stop. He must be dead. No one doubted that Bai Shaoxing was in complete despair and no longer held any hope. A look of heartlessness flashed through the sage monarch king's eyes. He ordered an ordinary demon god mountain overgod, Xianluan, go down and retrieve Yi Qinghan's corpse. Xianluan did not dare to go against the sage monarch king's will. Under the cover of the smoke and dust, he jumped into the crater and dove down until he reached the bottom. It was pitch black, and the dust was so thick that he could not even see his own fingers. He could only slowly search for Yi Qinghan's corpse. Xianluan pulled out his spear and stabbed it into the ground. After a long time, he could not pull his spear back. It was as if someone had grabbed it. He could not help but be shocked. Yi Qinghan's eyes were red, and there was not a single piece of undamaged skin on his body. Clutching Xianluan's spear in his hand, he climbed up from the rock and pierced Xianluan's chest with lightning speed. Ah! Xianluan let out a shrill scream as he charged into the crater and into the clouds. However, his scream was cut short midway. The sky was deathly silent, and the four bodies were completely stunned. Yi Qinghan was not dead. Otherwise, Xian Luan would not have let out such a shrill scream. Yi Qinghan grinned coldly as he crushed Xian Luan's body with a single palm. Even his divine spark was shattered. Primal chaos energy poured out, and Yi Qinghan's flesh was badly mangled. However, his flesh was still wriggling and rapidly healing. The power of the fruit of primal chaos had not been completely exhausted, but it was no longer enough to threaten his life. I really have to thank you for helping me reduce the power of the fruit of primal chaos. Yi Qinghan crushed the rock beneath his feet and soared into the sky. He rushed out from the ground and directly appeared in front of everyone. His hoarse voice caused everyone to feel a chill. Even the Saint Monarch King trembled in disgust. This was a kind of fear and panic that came from the bottom of their hearts. He was not dead. Bai Xiaosheng's eyes lit up, filled with worship and adoration. You really are an unkillable cockroach. The black tiger physique Tiger Liang's eyes were filled with a hint of reverence. This was reverence for the strong, reverence for those who were stronger than themselves. But I can beat you to death. Yi Qinghan clenched his fists, causing his veins to bulge. Many scales appeared on his body. They were blood-red dragon scales that covered his entire body, leaving only his devilish face exposed. His ferocious gaze was like that of a vicious beast. It was terrifying. He could no longer be considered human. Chapter 974. I can beat you to death. The hoarse voice was devoid of any emotion, as if it had come from the mouth of a corpse. It made one's scalp tingle, and the surrounding 1,000 miles fell into a deathly silence as if time and space had stopped. Kakik. Some of the over-god's teeth involuntarily chattered, and an ear-piercing sound broke the silence. Hiss. The Sage King sucked in a breath of cold air as sweat appeared on his forehead. The four great war constitutions were the same, and sweat poured down like rain. The experts of the myriad law realm were filled with terror as they stared at Yi Qinghan in disbelief. Bai Fengyun and Yi Jingxing's Dao hearts rumbled, and their expressions changed drastically. They felt as if their invincible hearts had been shattered, and the feeling of being suppressed by someone of the same level was unbearable. How is this possible? Bai Yelu said to himself hoarsely. He could not believe that Yi Qinghan had survived the attack that he had endured. Bai Xiaosheng trembled with excitement, and he could not hide the admiration in his eyes. Boom! Yi Qinghan's veins bulged as he punched out, directly shattering the void and sweeping up 10,000 layers of flames. He appeared in front of the Sage King in an instant. The Sage King was shocked, and he poured out his divine power as the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger struck out at Yi Qinghan's fist. The two were extremely fast, and their auras soared into the heavens as they fiercely collided. Bang! Kacha. There was a loud explosion as tens of thousands of rays of light tore through the void, forming a colorful screen of light. The sound of bones breaking was especially ear-piercing. Ah! The Sage King screamed as his middle finger was broken by Yi Qinghan's punch. When it came into contact with the Sage King's fist, his fist exploded into a bloody mess. His right arm was directly smashed off, and his powerful physical body was like rotten wood in front of Yi Qinghan, unable to withstand a single blow. Hua! The Sage King's body flew into the distance like a kite with its string cut. His strongest attack had not been able to block Yi Qinghan's punch. Yi Qinghan's eyes shone with a cold light as he raised his foot and kicked out, catching up to the Sage King's body in midair. He stepped on the Sage King's face, and the muscles on his face instantly changed shape. Blood spurted out of his orifices as the Sage King's body crashed to the ground. I said that I can kill you. Boom! Yi Qinghan stepped on Sage Monarch King's face and stomped him into the ground. Ah! The Sage Sovereign King screamed and struggled, but his mouth was blocked by the foot. He struggled with his hands, trying to flip Yi Qinghan over, but Yi Qinghan was as heavy as Mount Tai. He was unable to move, and his face was crushed. Boom! Boom! Yi Qinghan swung his fists at Sage Monarch King's chest. Every punch caused his chest to deform. The Saint King kept spitting out blood, and his eyeballs almost popped out. His internal organs were completely deformed, and this was because Yi Qinghan had only used his physical body and not his divine power. Otherwise, this punch would have killed him completely. The fists rained down, causing the Saint Sovereign King to scream in pain. He had lost all ability to resist. Kill! Boom! Boom! The four Great War constitutions relied solely on their physical bodies. They didn't even dare to use their weapons for fear of accidentally killing the Sage Monarch. Bang! Yi Qinghan was sent flying by the four Great War constitutions, but Yi Qinghan had been holding onto the Sage Monarch King, who was also sent flying. He crashed heavily into the ground and rolled a few hundred meters before coming to a stop. Yi Qinghan didn't care about the four Great War constitutions' attacks. He kept swinging his iron fists at the Sage Monarch King, and every punch destroyed a part of the Sage Monarch King's life source. Boom! Boom! Yi Qinghan's madness was like a wild beast's instinctive attack. He relied solely on his fists, savagery, and ruthlessness. Everyone was terrified. Yi Qinghan seemed to want to focus on killing one and slowly deal with the rest. However, he was entangled with the Sage Monarch King, causing the four Great War constitutions to be unable to use their weapons. Boom! After another punch, the Sage Monarch King was on the verge of death. He couldn't even let out a scream. Bai Yelu's expression changed. The sword in his hand trembled involuntarily. He didn't need an existence that surpassed everything. He wanted to maintain balance, so he didn't want Yi Qinghan to be alive. Therefore, he moved in an instant. Whoosh! Bai Yelu activated his divine sword and turned it into a bolt of lightning that shot towards Yi Qinghan's head. This sword was extremely fast, and its power was absolutely terrifying. It was enough to kill Yi Qinghan. The moment Bai Yelu moved, Bai Xiaoxing also moved. This was because she saw her father attack from the corner of her eye. In addition, she was close to Yi Qinghan, so she directly pounced on Yi Qinghan and used her body to block Bai Yelu's sword. Puchi. How could Bai Xiaoxing's body block Bai Yelu's attack? Her chest was instantly pierced through. However, Bai Yelu didn't stop. Instead, he stabbed towards Yi Qinghan with Bai Xiaoxing's body. Ah! Bai Xiaoxing screamed into the sky. She grabbed Bai Yelu's hands and looked at her father's heartless eyes in disbelief. She felt half of her life force dissipating in an instant. Even her soul was dispersing. Her head slowly drooped. Yi Qinghan felt the aura of death. He immediately gave up on attacking the Sage Monarch King. He stood up and saw that Bai Xiaoxing had used her life to block most of the sword in order to save him. The sword pierced through her body and struck his chest at lightning speed. Boom! Puchi. The divine sword was extremely sharp. The tip of the sword pierced through the dragon scales and the heavy armor. The palatial Buddha pagoda shattered on the spot and pierced Yi Qinghan's heart. Puchi. Yi Qinghan and Bai Xiaoxing's bodies were directly nailed together by the divine sword. Blood flowed out like a fountain. Since you're willing to die with him, I'll fulfill your wish. Bai Yelu fiercely stabbed the entire divine sword into their bodies. Bai Xiaoxing's heart stopped beating in an instant. Her soul origin was suppressed. Yi Qinghan's body was almost pierced through. Father! What are you doing? She's my only sister. Bai Fengyun roared in shock. Yi Jingxing was also stunned. Even a vicious tiger wouldn't eat its cubs. Bai Yelu actually gave up on his own daughter in order to kill Yi Qinghan. The four battle constitutions were excited. Now that Yi Qinghan and the Sage Monarch King were separated, they all took out their weapons and charged towards Yi Qinghan. Boom! Roar! Sharp swords, sky-piercing spears, black tiger claws, all of them pierced through Yi Qinghan and Bai Xiaosheng's bodies, nailing them together. Bai Xiaosheng's soul didn't even have the chance to struggle before it sank into darkness. Roar! Yi Qinghan roared at the sky. Terrifying primal chaos force rushed out of his body and directly sent the 5 experts flying. Blood spurted out from their bloody holes and dyed the sky red. 9 heavens burning fire. Hua! Flames bathed thousands of li and blocked their vision. Yi Qinghan took the opportunity to tear open the void and escape with Bai Xiaosheng's corpse. The 5 experts were horrified. This kind of flame could already injure one's soul origin. The 4 battle constitutions swept away the sage monarch king's body while Bai Yelu fled back to the myriad law domain. He couldn't care less about Yi Qinghan's whereabouts, which gave him a chance to live. After tearing the void apart, Yi Qinghan felt that he was losing control of his primal chaos energy. He couldn't even connect with his godhead. His various profound essences were scattered, and Bai Xiaosheng, who was in his arms, didn't even have the slightest bit of vitality left, let alone profound essences. Chapter 975. Yi Qinghan swooped down with Bai Xiaosheng's corpse and bathed in the river of blood. Bai Xiaosheng's body had already been drained of blood. Yi Qinghan was furious. He didn't expect that the person he had lied to for half a year would be willing to give up her life for him. He wasn't a bad person, nor was he a good person, but he still had the most basic principles and bottom line. This favor couldn't be repaid in any other way, and there was no chance to do so. Boom! Yi Qinghan didn't care about the cost and injected some pure sunlight elements into Bai Xiaosheng's body in an attempt to save her life. Unfortunately, it was futile. Bai Xiaosheng's heart had already been pierced by Bai Yelu's sword, destroying her soul origin. Her desire to live wasn't strong to begin with, and with the 4 battle constitutions penetrating her body, even if Yi Qinghan could reverse the situation, he wouldn't be able to save her life. No. Hold on a little longer. Yi Qinghan roared. Sensing the life in the space, he directly tore open the alternate space and fell out. Without the support of the quintessence, he fell from the sky and crashed into the foot of a mountain. In order to prevent Bai Xiaosheng from being injured again, Yi Qinghan used his own body to slam into the ground, causing a cloud of dust to rise. Pfft! Yi Qinghan spat out a mouthful of essence blood and stood up with Bai Xiaosheng in his arms. He shot out like an arrow and rushed towards the human city not far from the foot of the mountain. The mountain range was connected into a single line, and the sky and clouds were within reach. Pear blossoms bloomed and covered the sky. It was snowy white, like a fairyland. Yi Qinghan carried Bai Xiaosheng's corpse through the rain of pear blossoms. Blood splattered everywhere and dyed the flowers red. The bloody flowers were swept up by the air currents and flew high into the sky. Whoosh! Moments later, Yi Qinghan ran to the city walls with Bai Xiaosheng in his arms. The tall city gates were engraved with the words, Right Spring Prefecture. The gates were wide open and there were no guards at all. The villagers in the prefecture were not on guard against each other and did not take any chances. It was just like the peach blossom spring. There was no fighting and no law of the jungle. When Yi Qinghan appeared and left, he attracted the attention of the passers-by. They were not on guard, nor did they watch the show. All of them rushed over to ask if Yi Qinghan needed any help. Yi Qinghan was covered in blood and asked anxiously, "Is there a godly doctor nearby?" "It's in the city." "Young man, come with me quickly." "I'll take you there," a simple and honest middle-aged man quickly replied, his eyes filled with worry. Swish! Swish! Yi Qinghan lifted the middle-aged man and rushed into the city. He said hoarsely, "Lead the way." The middle-aged man was shocked by Yi Qinghan. He felt wind in his ears and mouth. He could not speak and could only use his finger to point the way. Yi Qinghan followed the finger and ran madly. He turned continuously and rushed past the crowd to a lake in the city. There was a floating bamboo bridge over the lake that extended for more than 10 meters. There was a courtyard house in the middle of the lake. The environment was very elegant. The green willows around the lake were blowing and pear blossoms were blooming. The willows swayed in the wind and the fragrance was overwhelming. Yi Qinghan put down the simple and honest middle-aged man and rushed in with Bai Shaosheng. He kicked the door open and shouted, "Where is he? Godly doctor, come out and help me save someone. I'm willing to pay any price." Creak, the sound of the door being pushed open could be heard. A white-haired old man walked out from the main house. He had a sage-like demeanor and his white hair swayed in the wind. Yi Qinghan could tell at a glance that this person was really capable. It was a kind of intuition. He did not kneel to the heavens and earth but only to his parents and master. Yet, he actually knelt. Boom! Yi Qinghan knelt on the ground and held up Bai Shaosheng's corpse with both hands. He was extremely respectful and said hoarsely, "I beg Senior to save her life. I'm willing to pay any price." "Young man, she's already dead." The old man's voice was firm and firm. It was powerful and convincing. "No. Her last bit of life is still being kept alive by my pure sunlight element. There's still a chance. Please save her life." Yi Qinghan bowed and raised Bai Shaosheng's corpse above his head. "Young man, don't do things that defy the heavens. Her lifespan is already at its end. Even if she can force herself to stay, her vitality will dissipate very quickly. The speed at which she ages is unimaginable. At most 3 years, she will finish living the life of others. You will have to pay a lot more and waste too much. I advise you to withdraw the pure sunlight element and treat your injuries." The old man shook his head and suggested. 3 years to finish living the life of others. Would that still be considered a life? I beg Senior to save her. Yi Qinghan said again. Saving her will only increase her grief. Saving her is the same as harming her. The old man shook his head regretfully. I beg Senior to save her life again. I'm willing to pay the price even if it means saving her life for one more day. Yi Qinghan replied resolutely. The old man shook his head and sighed. His ancient voice slowly rang out, and he said hoarsely, "Youngster, your current injuries are extremely severe. Anyone else would have transformed into the Tao long ago. If you don't save her, I can use my pure sunlight elemental essence and my medical skills to restore your profound essence. But if you save her, you'll be giving up on Sovereign's might. In the future, if you want to corroborate your Tao, you'll have to rely on your physical body. Are you certain that you want to use your supreme late-stage power to force her to stay behind for 3 years and watch her age quickly within 3 years? I'm willing. I beg Senior to save her. Yi Qinghan replied resolutely. Then give her a portion of your remaining life force. Use the pure sunlight element in her body to protect her soul. Leave the rest to me. But I must make it clear to you that 3 years is equivalent to her entire life. You'll personally watch her age. This is an extremely cruel thing to do." The old man took a deep breath and reminded in a hoarse voice. Yi Qinghan didn't want to say anything more. He directly injected a portion of his life force into Bai Shaosheng, using the pure sunlight element in her sea of consciousness to heal her wounds and soothe her soul. The old man's attacks were as fast as lightning, continuously striking Bai Shaosheng's body. A silver needle pierced into her sea of consciousness and sat above her sea of suffering soul. It slowly spun and condensed her soul, slowing down the rate at which her soul was collapsing by 1,000-fold. But compared to an ordinary person, it was tens of thousands of times faster. It was a simple action, but it contained a profound mystery. The old man's ability to control the soul was beyond the comprehension of Yi Qinghan. He was a true soul over God. If he wanted to kill someone, it would be as easy as blowing off dust. He wouldn't even leave a single trace. Put her in the side room. I'll brew some medicine for her to drink. She'll be as good as new by tomorrow. However, the rate at which her life force is collapsing is 100,000 times faster than an ordinary person. 3 years is the end of her lifespan. I can't delay it any longer. No one in the world can delay it any longer. Even if the Overgod comes, it'll be the same. After saying that, the old man went to the pharmacy and took out some medicine. Yi Qinghan placed Bai Shaoxing on the bed. Her face was still pale, but there were signs of blood flow in her body. Her soul also fluctuated slightly. He couldn't help but let out a breath of turbid air. The exhausted Yi Qinghan sat cross-legged on the bed, trying his best to use his god force to heal her wounds. However, he had completely lost contact with the quintessence. He knew that the 13 quintessence were in his sea of consciousness, but he couldn't control them. Chapter 976. Damn it, my mystical origin has been scattered. I have divine power but I can't use it. Without divine power, divine arts can't be used. Am I destined to rely on my physical body to prove my Tao? Yi Qinghan leaned against the bed and looked out the window dispiritedly. He had painstakingly forged the 9-revolution chaotic Tao body, but he couldn't even use the most basic origin body. Bai Shaoxing's injuries were much more serious than Yi Qinghan's. If not for the miracle doctor and the pure sunlight element, no one would have been able to save her. Not long after, the old man brought a bowl of medicine and placed it in Yi Qinghan's hands. He said calmly, "Feed her. She'll be fine in a while." Yi Qinghan took the medicine and said hoarsely, "Thank you, Senior, for your righteousness. I will definitely repay you tenfold. Do you understand the price you paid now? Do you regret it now? I only need you to tell me the answer. That will be your repayment." The old man stared at Yi Qinghan, hoping that he would answer his question seriously. Yi Qinghan shook his head and said, "I don't regret it. Back then, I made the opposite decision. Now, I regret it. That's why I'm willing to save her. Even though you only have 3 years, I've done my best. Stay here for the next 3 years. This is a sacred land. It's fate that brought you here." With that, the old man turned and left, leaving Yi Qinghan with a sorrowful back. Time flowed like water. Yi Qinghan was powerless to reverse the situation. He couldn't use the mystical origin and divine power. He could only rely on his physical body to slowly recover. The next day, Bai Shaoxing woke up from her coma. The old man's medical skills were indeed superb. He could bring the dead back to life. Even though it was only 3 years of life, it was still beyond everyone's comprehension. Bai Shaoxing looked at his eyes in confusion and saw Yi Qinghan standing outside the window. Against the mountains and rivers, he looked magnificent. He murmured hoarsely, "So hell isn't as scary as I thought." Yi Qinghan hurriedly turned around and helped Bai Shaoxing up. He helped her out of the window and looked at the pear blossoms around them. He explained in a hoarse voice, "You're not dead yet, and neither am I. It's just that, your life force is dissipating 100,000 times faster than a normal person's. I thought I was dead for sure. It would be good if I could live for another 2 or 3 years." Bai Shaoxing was shocked. There was a trace of reluctance and sadness in his eyes, but he hid it well. "You're really stupid. Why did you block that sword? I lied to you for so long. I was just using you. Is there something wrong with your brain?" Yi Qinghan's heart was filled with anger. He had used a woman's life in exchange for his own and was unable to repay the debt. This sort of guilt was even worse than being heavily injured. "You're the one with a hole in your head. You're my disciple, and I'm your master. How could I not save you?" Bai Shaoxing grinned. Her smile was particularly sad. She knew that she was going to die, so there was no need to add more emotional burdens to Yi Qinghan. Therefore, she chose to avoid her feelings. Idiot. Yi Qinghan sighed. He hated this kind of stupid woman. You're the idiot. Damned Azura King. I was fooled by you the first time, and the second time. How are you going to compensate me? Bai Xiaoxing pretended to be angry. Yi Qinghan suddenly remembered Bai Xiaoxing's silly look when they first met. He couldn't help but smile. What kind of compensation do you want? The stars in the sky, the dragons in the sea? Yi Qinghan clenched his fists. As long as Bai Xiaoxing told him her wish today, he would use the next 3 years to fulfill it for her. Bai Xiaoxing raised her pale face and stared at his determined expression. She asked in a hoarse voice, "Can you promise me anything I want?" Yi Qinghan nodded. "I want you, to not take revenge on my father, not to vent your anger on my family, and not to destroy my sect." Bai Xiaoxing said very seriously. Yi Qinghan frowned and reprimanded coldly, "Is there something wrong with your brain? Does he treat you as his daughter? I don't want to argue with you. Regardless of whether he treats me as his daughter or not, he is my father, my brother, my family, and the elders in my sect all take good care of me. I don't want them to go against you in the future, and I don't want you to be mortal enemies. You can establish the Azura sect and hide the crazy sect behind you. This shows that you are ambitious and have a plan. I'm worried that you will destroy the unifying sect. Just treat it as appeasing my dying soul. Promise me, don't do anything to the Bai family, the unifying sect, or the unifying sect, and don't take revenge on my father, okay?" Bai Xiaoxing asked expectantly. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and finally nodded, agreeing to Bai Xiaoxing's request. The white-haired old man did not appear. Yi Qinghan brought Bai Xiaoxing to the lake and strolled along the pear blossom forest. The two did not speak. They both knew what was going on, but neither was willing to say it out loud. Bai Xiaoxing's aging speed was faster than the old man had predicted. In just a day, her face had matured. The two walked slowly. The pear blossoms danced in the air, as if snow had fallen, landing on their shoulders and hair. "Does this count as our hair turning white together?" "Ha ha ha." Bai Xiaoxing pinched a few pear blossoms with her jade-like hands and laughed. "Yes." Yi Qinghan replied without hesitation. Bai Xiaoxing smiled. She smiled very happily. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, every day was the same. Sometimes, the old man would stand on the pontoon bridge and look at the two of them. His eyes were filled with regret, self-blame, and other emotions that the world did not understand. By the second year, Bai Xiaoxing's hair had turned white and his skin had begun to wrinkle. It was still the same season, but things had changed. Yi Qinghan took the initiative to hold her arm and helped her wander around Lichuan Prefecture. The people of Lichuan Prefecture recognized the two of them and often sent them small art sculptures. There were sculptures of 2 people holding hands, and there were also sculptures of 2 people sitting under a pear tree. Every sculpture was perfect to the extreme, and the craftsmanship was uncanny. By the end of the second year, Bai Xiaoxing was so old that her hair was as white as snow, without a trace of black. Her skin was completely wrinkled. She was so old that she could not even walk. Yi Qinghan brought her to a carving shop. Yi Qinghan began to learn carving. He carved Bai Xiaoxing's changes in the past 3 years. It was the first time he saw Bai Xiaoxing's appearance. Yi Qinghan studied diligently. Gradually, he carved out Bai Xiaoxing's spirit and soul, as if it was coming to life. Yi Qinghan's mentality slowly changed. His impetuous heart finally calmed down. Day after day, he carved Bai Xiaoxing's appearance. Bai Xiaoxing just sat there quietly. There was only half a month left before the end of her life. Yi Qinghan's carving was just like Bai Xiaoxing's reappearance. "These 3 years have been the happiest time of my life. Thank you," Bai Xiaoxing said happily. Yi Qinghan looked at Bai Xiaoxing's aged face. His nose turned sour and he almost couldn't hold back his tears. I'm sorry. I still haven't found a way to preserve your life. Yi Qinghan said softly. No, I don't need it. I like this kind of mortal life. If I don't die, you might not even be alive. Your survival has made me experience happiness. It's the kind of happiness that comes from the bottom of my heart. It's a happiness that many people can't experience even after living for tens of thousands or even millions of years. I've felt it, and I'm living a better life than them. Bai Shaoxing said seriously. Yi Qinghan was silent. He felt ashamed to face this girl who was as pure as a piece of white paper. I don't fight for eternity, I fight for every moment. Bai Shaoxing looked at her own carving. Her eyes were filled with sadness and reluctance. She had completely fallen in love with the feeling of being protected. It wasn't that she didn't want to fight for eternity, but she didn't have the ability to fight for it. Every moment was enough. Chapter 977. Don't fight for eternity, fight for every moment. It was a simple sentence, but how many people could do it? Bai Shaoxing's mind was simple and pure. She wanted a lot, but she was content. Although 3 years passed quickly, every day was sufficient. Don't be sad, don't be sad. I'm happy and content. Even if I die, I'll remember that film where Yi Qinghan disguised himself as the Azura King and bullied me. I'll also remember that he took care of me for 3 years. Bai Shaoxing whispered. Yi Qinghan didn't know what to say. He could only remain silent. He owed her too much, and anything he said would be useless. The two got up and returned to the lake. The pear blossoms were still blooming. 3 years was just a point in time, but things had changed. Bai Shaoxing's snow-white figure was reflected on the surface of the lake. It was like a mirror reflecting their faces. Bai Shaoxing looked at herself in the water and touched the wrinkles on her face. She was sad and asked hoarsely, "Am I ugly now? Do you despise me? Why would I? You've never changed in my heart. You've always been that silly and brainless girl." Yi Qinghan suppressed the sadness in her heart and wanted to relieve the pressure on Bai Shaoxing. A peerless beauty had turned into an ugly old woman in 3 years. That kind of feeling was incomprehensible. Everyone loved beauty, let alone Yi Qinghan, so she teased him. "You're the brainless one. Be careful or I'll beat you to death." Bai Shaoxing snorted. Yi Qinghan shrugged his shoulders and brought her away from the shore. The moonlight poured down, and under the contrast of the white pear blossoms, it was like a fairyland. From the back, one was a tall and straight young woman, and the other was a young man with an extraordinary aura. They were like a fairy child, but from the front, it only made people feel pity. There were only about 10 days left. Bai Shaoxing didn't want to sleep at all. The two would walk 1 or 2 laps around the lake every day, but they didn't get tired of it. I seem to see the end. Bai Shaoxing stared ahead, it was as though he could really see the cycle of reincarnation. There was a boundless black hole beckoning to him, getting closer and closer. Regardless of whether he advanced or retreated, he would still be getting closer and closer. Yi Qinghan looked at Bai Shaoxing and suddenly discovered that her face was full of vitality. Her skin had become translucent and her eyes were filled with excitement. Yi Qinghan's heart couldn't help but tremble. Terminal lucidity. Bai Shaoxing had returned to the time when he was young. She was still so young and beautiful, but her hair was still snow-white and her face was a little rosy. Yi Qinghan reached out and pulled Bai Shaoxing into his arms, letting her enjoy her last moment of peace. In the Myriad Law domain, in the Myriad Law Return to Origin sect, Bai Fengyun was holding a cracked life token. It was Bai Shaoxing's life token. Seeing the crack grow bigger and bigger, and the life fluctuations growing dimmer and dimmer, he couldn't help but dejectedly sit down. In the past 3 years, the 10,000 Arts Return to Oneness sect had become particularly quiet. Bai Yelu had also become much quieter. He had never gone out, only sitting cross-legged in the Thunder Punishment Territory to cultivate in seclusion, enduring the strikes of the Thunder Punishment Territory. He had not gone out for 3 whole years. Boom! 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 Thunder Punishment Territory struck Bai Yelu's body, turning him into a bloody mess. It would explode every 2 hours, and each explosion lasted for an incense stick's worth of time. The remaining time was given to the person receiving the punishment to recover. After a long time, Bai Fengyun came out of the Thunder Punishment Cave with the shattered life token and said with a hoarse voice, "Father, sister has left. I know. Go back and announce my father's decree. From today onwards, the position of sect master of the Myriad Law Return to Origin sect will be passed to you. I will cultivate in seclusion in the Thunder Punishment Cave for 300 years. Bai Yelu didn't turn his head. His sorrowful aura was filled with regret and anger. He hated Yi Qinghan. The daughter he raised didn't understand him and actually helped the enemy. Now that Bai Shaoxing had reached Tao actualization, he could only vent his hatred on Yi Qinghan. If it wasn't for Yi Qinghan, Bai Shaoxing definitely wouldn't have disobeyed him. Yi Qinghan, you will be buried together with her. Bai Yelu's hoarse roar reverberated in the Thunder Punishment Cave. Following which, lightning flashed and tore his body apart. Beside a lake in Right Spring Prefecture, 2 people were hugging each other tightly. The night wind blew and swept up the pear blossoms. The 2 figures stood upright in the rustling wind. I've reached the end. Don't miss me. Bai Shaoxing laid in Yi Qinghan's arms. Her arms hugged his neck and gradually slid down his shoulders. Her breath and soul disappeared at the same time. Yi Qinghan hugged her tighter and tighter. His entire body felt cold. It was a coldness that came from the bottom of his heart. It was as though he had lost something. For the past 3 years, he didn't do it for love, but for responsibility. But now, he seemed to understand that responsibility was sometimes more noble than love. When he lost this responsibility, it was even more heart-wrenching than losing love. Tears were flowing. Silent tears were always the most painful wound in the heart. It was an unspeakable sorrow. This was Yi Qinghan's greatest sorrow after Owl Warstar. I'm going to avenge you. Yi Qinghan slowly carried Bai Shaoxing's body and walked around the lake again and again. He whispered, you said you loved this place and this lake the most. But this is the last time you'll see this lake. After walking for a whole night and more than 20 rounds, the sky was bright. Yi Qinghan carried Bai Shaoxing to the city gate. A wisp of energy floated down from her head. In Right Spring Prefecture, there was a lonely mountain in front of them. It was covered with peach blossoms and pear blossoms. There was an endless stream of people on the road. Some were playing, some were inhaling and exhaling the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Their cultivation wasn't bad, but no one was fighting. This place was always peaceful. Everyone looked at Yi Qinghan carrying Bai Shaoxing's body and bowed one after another. Fellow Taoist Yi, my condolences. White Fairy, rest in peace. Fellow Taoist Yi, my condolences. White Fairy, rest in peace. Everyone said the same thing as they watched Yi Qinghan leave. Yi Qinghan didn't reply. He didn't have the strength to speak either. He directly carried Bai Shaoxing and disappeared from Right Spring Prefecture City. He went deep into the lonely mountain and chose the largest valley. He then dug a huge pit. Afterward, Yi Qinghan began to polish the stone coffin and carve runes. Although he didn't use any godly energy, he used a stone knife to carve runes. He used the stone knife to carve runes. Even though he didn't use any godly energy, the stone coffin was the purest form of abstrusity. Unless there was someone who could surpass him in terms of understanding of abstrusity, it was impossible to open the stone coffin. Yi Qinghan's understanding of the profound mysteries of the 13 Great Tao's origin laws had already reached great success. He didn't have any godly energy now, so he relied on the most basic abstrusity runes to protect by Xiaosheng's stone coffin. With every rune he polished, Yi Qinghan's understanding of the mysteries of runes would increase slightly. He carved a total of 30,000 runes, covering every corner of the sarcophagus and completely sealing it. He then placed it in the deep pit and covered it with soil. Afterward, he uprooted 2 tall mountains and polished them into stone walls. He blocked both sides of the valley and used stone slabs to seal the top. Yi Qinghan carved runes onto the stone slab. It took 10 years for Yi Qinghan to finish carving runes onto the huge tomb. Then, he erected a huge tombstone with only 12 words carved onto it. By Xiaosheng's tomb. A lifetime of regret. Signed by Yi Qinghan. A lonely grave stood in the middle of the pear blossoms, and the whole valley was enveloped by it. Yi Qinghan spent the past 10 years polishing this large tomb. However, with every rune he carved, he would make some progress. His understanding of the profound mysteries of the Great Tao deepened. Although he still couldn't use his godly energy, his battle prowess wasn't just limited to his physical body. There were also profound mysteries. Yi Qinghan looked at the tombstone in silence for a long time. Finally, he chose to leave, leaving behind an unruly back view. Yi Qinghan didn't even know where he was. He could only walk forward silently, leaving this place and searching for the whereabouts of the endless star system. Without godly energy, he could only walk. He could be considered a unique character in the primal chaos plane and attracted a lot of attention. However, Yi Qinghan didn't have the slightest bit of emotion. He simply didn't care about this matter. Chapter 978. In the western divine region, a lonely figure walked forward silently. His shadow grew longer and longer, and even the sunrise and sunset could not stop him. His green robes were extremely plain and simple. His long black hair hung down to his waist. His strong and vigorous body constantly crushed stones as he advanced towards the sun. From time to time, a ferocious beast would appear in the sky. It had a sharp mouth and sharp teeth, pouncing towards that figure. However, it would be smashed into pieces with a single punch, dyeing the sky red with blood. He was Yi Qinghan. He did not know how far he had traveled, but he did not see any human territory. After walking for more than 10 days, Yi Qinghan could not help but frown. He looked up at the sky, trying to figure out the direction. If you want to recover your divine power, you must successfully forge the 9 revolutions chaotic Tao body and repair your origin. Only then can you prove your Tao again. Yi Qinghan recalled the advice that the old man from the Right Spring County had given him. He could not help but think to himself. Currently, his physical body had 13 divine personas, but they had all lost their effect. He had gathered 13 types of great Tao and laws. If he wanted to forge the 9 revolutions chaotic Tao body, he had to gather the remaining 5 types of great Tao and laws. Boundary steels. Yi Qinghan said hoarsely. What he lacked the most now were the 5 types of great Tao and laws. As long as he could find the remaining 5 boundary steels, he would be able to forge the 9 revolutions chaotic Tao body. Lan Yao is very sensitive to boundary steels. My first goal now is to return to the endless star system and take her to find the boundary steels. Yi Qinghan planned the step by step, and did not panic. Gradually, Yi Qinghan began to increase his speed. He used his physical body to run quickly, and each step he took covered hundreds of meters, leaving behind afterimages. After another half a month, a city appeared in his sight. The city was majestic and vast. There were many people outside the city, but there were very few experts. Yi Qinghan stepped into the city and found that there were only a few idle weak and old people left. There were even very few medium god worshippers. How could this be? Yi Qinghan was secretly shocked. Such a big city would definitely have ordinary main gods, but now there were very few medium god worshippers. Could something have happened? On both sides of the road were some decayed old people. They had set up stalls and sold some rather ancient things. There were bottles and jars, as well as some artifacts. It was unknown when these things had been passed down. And the people who were shopping for treasures were actually a group of women and children. Even the middle-level gods were wearing brocade robes. Clearly, they were all of noble bloodlines. Yi Qinghan. The old man looked at Yi Qinghan in surprise, as if the whole world should know about this. Where did you come from? The old man asked. Then do you know where this is? This is the Western Divine Region, the 18 Western regions of the Western Pass. It is the territory of the powerful shaman tribe. Now, the shaman tribe and the great demonic god's bloodline have begun to confront each other. Both sides are conscripting soldiers, and all the young cultivators above the level of a middle god are required to join the army. If they don't want to join the army, they have to pay a large amount of top-quality divine crystals. How can poor commoners like us afford so many top-quality divine crystals? Only now did Yi Qinghan understand that the two factions had already begun to plan for a battle to the death. A bloody storm had already begun. May I ask who is currently in control of this city, and what is their cultivation level? Yi Qinghan asked again. It's young Master Yulong, the youngest son of the city lord. He's a high god. The old man then reminded Yi Qinghan in a low voice, Young man, I advise you to hurry back to the mountains. All the cities have been recruiting able-bodied men over the years. Anyone who refuses to join the army will be forced into a suicide squad and become cannon fodder. Yi Qinghan nodded and threw 2 pieces of top-quality divine crystals to the old man. Then, he got up and walked toward the center of the city, heading straight for the city lord's mansion. When he arrived at the city lord's mansion, the security was extremely lax. The strongest person was only a middle god, and the rest were lower gods. Yi Qinghan stared coldly at them, and they didn't dare to move. They allowed him to enter the city lord's mansion. But soon, a high god powerhouse flew out and blocked Yi Qinghan's path. Who are you? Why did you not join the army and come to the city lord's mansion? The young expert had a strong aura of a high god powerhouse, but there was a hint of lust in his eyes. He still had the scent of a woman. He must have been enjoying himself just now. He was young Master Yulong. The city lord liked him very much, which was why he was left to guard the city while he went to the battlefield himself. Open the gate and send me to the largest city in the 18 western regions, Yi Qinghan said coldly. If he wanted to return to the endless galaxy as soon as possible, he had to go to the largest city nearby and then go through the gate to the 6 Paths domain. There was a gate in the 6 Paths domain that led directly to the Azura domain. Reaching the Azura domain was equivalent to reaching the endless galaxy. Young Master Yulong was furious. He couldn't see any fluctuation of divine power on Yi Qinghan. How dare he talk to him like this? He waved his hand and channeled his divine power to suppress Yi Qinghan. Boom! His palm pierced through the void and appeared in front of Yi Qinghan. His black hair fluttered in the wind. It was quite powerful. Swoosh! Yi Qinghan reached out and grabbed the palm. Then, he used his thumb to break young Master Yulong's wrist. Crack! Ah! Young Master Yulong screamed and knelt in front of Yi Qinghan. He couldn't use any of his divine power. It was as if his godhead had been grasped. My lord, please spare my life. I didn't recognize you. Young Master Yulong knelt and begged for mercy. His face was distorted from the pain. Humph! Yi Qinghan snorted and pushed young Master Yulong to the ground. He said coldly, Don't test my limits. If you dare to attack me again, I'll kill you. Young Master Yulong's face was pale. His right wrist was trembling and he couldn't use any strength. He looked at Yi Qinghan in horror. Take me to the territory gate. Open it and send me to the most powerful territory of the 18 territories. Don't play tricks with me. If you dare to do anything, I'll kill you immediately. Yi Qinghan's eyes were filled with killing intent as he warned young Master Yulong. At this moment, he had to be cautious. The relationship between the sorcerer tribe and the crazy sect was not good, especially after the incident where the sorcerer tribe hunted down and killed the crazy sect. The relationship between the two camps had reached a freezing point. Now that he had no divine power, once the sorcerer tribe found out about his whereabouts, they might do something crazy. Young Master Yulong lowered his head and walked in front of Yi Qinghan. His eyes were filled with resentment and anger. He roared, "No one has ever dared to hit me. How dare you humiliate me like this? I'll make you pay for it. I'll send you to the Western Pass. There are many experts there and even the army is there." Chapter 979. Although young Master Yulong appeared to be respectful, he was secretly plotting something. He led Yi Qinghan toward the gate. There was no one guarding the gate at the moment. Only young Master Yulong could open it. Yi Qinghan stepped into the gate. He did not have any divine power, so he could only go through young Master Yulong. "Open the gate. If you don't want to die, you'd better be safe," Yi Qinghan said coldly. Young Master Yulong did not dare to refute. He opened the gate and connected it to the gate in West Pass Prefecture. Yi Qinghan grabbed young Master Yulong and led him into the gate. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Whoosh. The Western Pass 18 zones was considered a short-distance teleportation. The two of them quickly arrived at another spacetime and appeared at the Western Pass Prefecture's domain gate. The Western Pass Prefecture's army was stationed there, and the experts of the 18 zones were all here. When Yi Qinghan appeared, he sensed many terrifying auras. The domain gate was controlled by many soldiers. "Save me. My father is over God Yolu." Young Master Yulong shouted when he saw the large army. Swoosh. Hundreds of eyes locked onto Yi Qinghan. Many of them were half-step over gods. Then, more than 10 teams surrounded Yi Qinghan. "Who are you? How dare you cause trouble in West Pass Prefecture?" A thunderous voice was heard. Then, a group of people appeared from behind. A bearded man who was more than 2 meters tall appeared. He was as strong as a bull, and he held a giant axe in his hand. A cold gleam radiated from him. He led the 100-man team to surround Yi Qinghan, blocking his way. Yi Qinghan looked at the group of people coldly. He realized that he had run into the encirclement of West Pass Prefecture's army. There was a military camp nearby. Powerhouses from all over gathered there. Although there were no over-gods, more than 10 of them were nearby. Yi Qinghan grabbed young Master Yulong by the neck and lifted him up. He asked in a hoarse voice, "Do you think you can kill me by bringing me here? My father is over God Yolu. If you dare to kill me, my father will definitely not let you off. Let me go." Young Master Yulong's face was pale, and he was sweating profusely. He struggled with his hands, but he couldn't touch Yi Qinghan. Therefore, he beat Yi Qinghan's arms like a girl. "Let go of young Master Yulong. This is the Western Pass Prefecture, the military headquarters of the Western Pass 18 zones. You dare to kill people here? Don't you want the goods anymore?" When the big man saw that Yi Qinghan was ignoring him, he couldn't help but fly into a rage. He stomped his foot and rushed towards Yi Qinghan, brandishing his giant axe to attack Yi Qinghan's left side. Whoosh! The giant axe cut through the air like a boneless knife and chopped directly at Yi Qinghan's arm, trying to force him to let go of Yulong's neck. However, Yi Qinghan turned his body to the side and reached out to grab the edge of the great axe. Moreover, it was just 2 fingers. With a light twist, he bent the half-step chief god-level great axe. Hissed that everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. The big man was so scared that he was frozen in place. He looked in disbelief at the divine weapon that was his lifeblood being bent by 2 fingers. That kind of horror and shock was very strong. Young Master Yulong had wanted to curse Yi Qinghan, but when he opened his mouth and stared at Yi Qinghan, he couldn't say a word. Yi Qinghan's eyes were full of coldness and murderous intent. He said indifferently, "Boy, I warned you not to play any tricks. But you asked for it." Crack. Yi Qinghan pinched young Master Yolong's neck with 2 fingers. Young Master Yolong's neck was as fragile as the great axe in the big man's hand. Bang! After killing young Master Yulong, Yi Qinghan lifted his foot and kicked the big man more than 10 meters away. "I'm just passing by. Who's in charge of the Western Pass Prefecture? Tell him to come out and see me." Yi Qinghan's aura exploded. His voice was like rolling thunder, shaking the clouds. It rolled in the West Pass Prefecture and startled countless experts. "Who's causing trouble here?" After a furious roar, a peerless master rushed out from the depths of the West Pass Prefecture. He had a sage-like demeanor, white hair, and high spirit. His strength was unfathomable. He was Wu Zhongyi, the governor of the West Pass Prefecture and an elder of the sorcerer tribe. He had learned most of the sorcerer god's skills and controlled the 18 regions of the West Pass as the governor. One could imagine that his strength was definitely one of the best among the overgods. Swoosh! Wu Zhongyi landed on the square of the West Pass Prefecture and looked at Yi Qinghan. Suddenly, he felt that Yi Qinghan looked familiar. He frowned and asked in a deep voice, "Who are you? Why are you killing people in my West Pass Prefecture?" "I'm Yi Qinghan. Do you want to kill me to avenge him?" Yi Qinghan asked coldly. Nearly 1,000 experts and countless soldiers in the square all sucked in a breath of cold air. Yi Qinghan's battle outside the infinite law domain had alarmed many people. The scene at that time had been recorded and spread widely. For more than a decade, there had been a saying in the chaotic universe, "It's better to offend the king of hell than to offend Yi Qinghan." Everyone knew that Yi Qinghan was a person, but his appearance was very vague. Now that they knew his true appearance, they couldn't help but sweat. Swish! 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 Thousands of people retreated at the same time, keeping a safe distance from Yi Qinghan. Even Wu Zhongyi's expression changed. His fingertips trembled slightly as he said in surprise, "So you haven't. I'm sorry for my disrespect. No wonder you look so familiar." Most people thought that Yi Qinghan was already dead. After being stabbed by Bai Yelu and pierced through by 4 battle constitutions, no matter how strong he was, he should have died. However, Yi Qinghan was still alive. No wonder Wu Zhongyi was so surprised. "May I know why Daoist Yi is here? Is there anything you need help with? My West Pass Prefecture is willing to do our best." Wu Zhongyi didn't know that Yi Qinghan had lost his divine power and didn't dare to fight against him. If Yi Qinghan was at his peak, he could have uprooted the West Pass Prefecture alone. Wu Zhongyi's choice to compromise was the right choice. "Open the gate and send me to the 6 Paths Domain or a big city that leads directly to the 6 Paths Domain." Yi Qinghan was expressionless as he said in a hoarse voice. "This." Wu Zhongyi hesitated for a moment, then said, "Daoist Yi may not know, but the West Pass Prefecture is very far from the 6 Paths Domain. One is in the extreme west, while the other is in the central region. My West Pass Prefecture doesn't have the gate to the 6 Paths Domain. If you want to go to the 6 Paths Domain, you'll have to go to the Sorcerer God Mountain, which is behind the sorcerer tribe." Yi Qinghan's brows twitched. If he went to the Sorcerer God Mountain in his current state, wouldn't that be equivalent to suicide? Wu Zhongyi didn't dare to test him. There would definitely be many experts on the Sorcerer God Mountain who would dare to make a move. If they made a move, they would be exposed. Therefore, he definitely couldn't go to the sorcerer tribe's headquarters. "It's too far. I'm in a hurry." Choose the shortest route for me. It's fine even if you use the gate. Yi Qinghan's handsome face was filled with an authoritative will. He was very domineering. The more domineering Yi Qinghan was, the more Wu Zhongyi didn't dare to act wildly. He even had to take the initiative to cooperate. Right now, he couldn't wait to send Yi Qinghan away, because no matter where he went, nothing good would happen. Right at this moment, sovereign god Yu Lu flew over from afar. Seeing the corpse of his most beloved son lying on the ground, he was filled with rage. Glaring furiously at Yi Qinghan, he growled, "You killed my son." Wu Zhongyi was shocked. He was afraid that Yi Qinghan would be enraged and kill Yu Lu. He immediately reprimanded, "Yu Lu, who allowed you to leave your post? Leave immediately. This is an order." Chapter 980. Wu Zhongyi's expression changed. He understood Yi Qinghan, but this Yu Lu had only heard of Yi Qinghan's legends. He had never seen him in person, so he didn't know who he was facing. He actually thought that Western Pass Prefecture would confront Yi Qinghan for him. Yu Lu couldn't see the situation clearly. Seeing his son die so tragically, he roared, "Lord Prefecture Master, you must seek justice for me. My Yu family only has one genius, and he was actually beaten to death by this bastard. Am I supposed to sit by and do nothing? Shut up." Wu Zhongyi was furious. He directly signaled to the several master gods behind him, "Suppress him. No. Today, I will kill him." Yu Lu was burning with rage. His master god power began to stir. He wanted to attack, but he was suppressed by the four master gods and couldn't move at all. Yi Qinghan narrowed his eyes at Yu Lu. His face was expressionless as he said hoarsely, "Let him go. If he wants to attack, then let him attack. Fellow Taoist Yi, he has eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Don't bicker with him. Right now, our clan is at war with Demon God Mountain, and a single Master God is the main force. The hatred between you and Demon God Mountain must be deep. We are on the same side, so we should cooperate." As Wu Zhongyi spoke, he signaled Yu Lu with his eyes, telling him to calm down. Yu Lu looked at Wu Zhongyi's eyes and heard the words "Fellow Taoist Yi." His heart sank, and he had a bad premonition. He vaguely guessed Yi Qinghan's identity, so he didn't dare to move. Yi Qinghan didn't want to be entangled with them. After seeing Yu Lu behave, he said to Wu Zhongyi, "Give me the fastest route to Azura region and open the region gate to send me away." Wu Zhongyi was a bit embarrassed. He bitterly smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist Yi, it's not that I don't want to help you, but there really is trouble. You can either go directly to Sorcerer Mountain or pass through the war zone between the two factions. It will be very dangerous." The battle zone was a huge, rectangular area. One had to cross the battle zone to get to the other side and take the space gateway. Otherwise, the battle above the battle zone would distort the space, which would definitely make the space gateway's teleportation fail. Only God knew where they would be teleported to. After thinking for a while, Yi Qinghan asked, "Who's leading the confrontation in the theater of operations?" "The war hasn't started yet, right?" Wu Zhongyi replied honestly, "The battle hasn't begun yet, but it can erupt at any moment now. Both sides have set up formations at the front lines and are stalling for time so that they have time to prepare. The generals on both sides are the Guangwu battle body and the Black Tiger battle body, as well as several overgods." "Where's the war zone?" Yi Qinghan asked with a frown. "Within a radius of 1,000 miles on both sides of the True Dragon River, both sides are gathering with the True Dragon River as a barrier. If you want to get to the Azura region from here, you have to cross the True Dragon River and take a detour to the Dongguan region on the other side of the river. Then, you can take the space gateway from the Dongguan region to the Six Paths domain and then go to the Azura region from the Six Paths domain," Wu Zhongyi replied. Yi Qinghan let out a long breath and said impatiently, "Open the space gateway and take me to the True Dragon River." Seeing Yi Qinghan had made up his mind, Wu Zhongyi didn't say anything more. In order to prevent conflicts between Yi Qinghan and the sorcerer tribe from the True Dragon River, Wu Zhongyi even took the space gateway to the True Dragon City. The True Dragon River was like a real dragon. It was about 10 miles wide, but no one knew how long it was. It seemed to be as long as the Chaos Plane was. A master god could pass through it with a single dive. However, it was not as simple as people thought. The two sides of the river had set up a great formation on both sides of the river, which blocked the space-time order. No one could fly through it, so it was the best barrier. The True Dragon River was dark and bottomless. The water roared like ferocious beasts. No one wanted to explore it. It was said that in the Chaos Era, a Chaos Giant God had sneaked into the True Dragon River and never came back out. Therefore, the True Dragon River was the most dangerous river. There were steep cliffs on both sides of the river. Occasionally, one could see some divine herbs growing on the cliffs. However, no one could pick them. These divine herbs had been growing for a long time. The river was filled with mist. More than 10 thick iron chains crossed the void, connecting the Eastern Pass region and the Western Pass prefecture. In peacetime, there would be iron plates on the chains to form a bridge. However, the plates had been removed long ago in the era of war. Both sides were forbidden to communicate and to prevent the other side from attacking. The river was so turbulent that ships would be overturned as soon as they entered the water. Therefore, the armies on both sides of the river were at ease. Although it was called a confrontation, it was actually just guarding the 10 iron chains. There would be an army like this guarding the chains every 3,000 miles. Boom! 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 The river was still roaring. The armies on both sides of the river pierced through the void. They could even see the other side's army. They were cursing and provoking, waiting for the other side to attack. Whoever attacked now would be at a disadvantage. At the moment, the Guanwu combat body was guarding a divine iron chain bridge in the middle. He looked at the other side silently and occasionally ordered the army to use the divine crossbows to attack the other side. These divine crossbows had great explosive power. They could penetrate a powerhouse's soul from hundreds of miles away. Only half-step lords could pull the divine crossbows. There were only a dozen or so gigantic battle bows. The dozen or so half-step lords worked together to pull the divine crossbow battle bows. Their divine power poured into them and converged into towering arrows. They tore through the clouds and shot into the enemy's military camp like lightning. Similarly, the demonic god mountain was also probing the other side. Both sides had suffered casualties and were looking for an opportunity to kill the other side first. Suddenly, the Guanwu combat body turned his head abruptly and saw two silhouettes appear at the territory gate behind the army. He was shocked when he focused his gaze. He had not expected to see Yi Qinghan here. He immediately ordered the army to stop attacking the other side of the river and defend Yi Qinghan instead. "I'm Wu Zhongyi from West Pass. Fellow Taoist Yi Qinghan is one of us. I'm just passing by today. Don't be nervous, everyone," Wu Zhongyi hurriedly explained in a low voice, afraid that the witch tribe army would attack Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan's vigorous body stepped toward the shore of the True Dragon River. He ignored the vigilance of the millions of powerhouses and brushed past the Guanwu combat body. He did not even look at the Guanwu combat body. He only stared at the iron chains that were as thick as an arm and the tumbling river water. He knew that he could not use the water origin to step on the True Dragon River's water to cross the river. With a tap of his toes, he charged onto one of the iron chains on the True Dragon Bridge that was more than 4 meters tall. Buzz! The thick iron chain swayed gently, swaying left and right. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and adjusted his state of mind. He wanted to stabilize the iron chain and directly walk over. "Let him pass. Don't attack him," Wu Zhongyi reminded softly. The Guangwu combat body nodded, but ordered the army to prepare for attack. As long as the demonic god mountain gave the order to attack Yiqing-han, the witch tribe would use this opportunity to counterattack. After Yiqing-han stabilized himself, he walked to the other side of the river step by step. He was alone, so he immediately raised the vigilance of the demonic god mountain army. Tiger Liang frowned as he looked at the black figure in front of him. The face that gradually became clearer made his hair stand on end. How can it be him? Tiger Liang was shocked. He roared at the sovereign behind him, immediately notify the war zone and send all the combat bodies to reinforce him. Chapter 981. Screech. The thick iron chains swayed in the air. They were about 20 meters away from the surface of the river. The waves slammed down with an extremely frightening aura. Therefore, the people from both camps could only attack from a distance. Apart from the divine crossbows and battle bows, it was very difficult to use any divine weapons that could injure or kill their opponents. Yiqing-han's green robes fluttered in the wind as he walked toward the opposite bank. His feet were like magnets. No matter how his body in the chain swayed, they did not fall into the true dragon river. Even in such a dangerous situation, Yiqing-han was still strolling leisurely. Both sides had stopped attacking. They did not know that Yiqing-han's origin had been scattered and that he had lost his divine power, so they did not dare to provoke this murderous god. He was too strong, so strong that he alone could intimidate an entire war zone. As long as he did not move, no one would dare to touch him. The black tiger battle constitution swallowed his saliva, and the spear in his hand trembled slightly. He wanted to take the initiative to attack, but he did not dare. This was because he knew that the chain could only trap ordinary gods, but not Yiqing-han. If he knew that Yiqing-han could not even control his godhood, he would definitely take the initiative to attack. All divine crossbows, get ready. Aim at him. Without my order, no one is allowed to attack, Tiger Liang shouted in a deep voice. The millions of soldiers held their breaths as they stared at the aloof and cold figure of River High School. The bows in their hands trembled, and their spears were raised, ready to be thrown at any moment. A spear thrown by one person might not be very powerful, but when millions or even tens of millions of intermediate or superior gods were thrown at the same time, it was enough to cover the sky. Yiqing-han stared coldly at Tiger Liang. He was also betting that Tiger Liang would not dare to make an enemy out of him. He was betting that Tiger Liang would not dare to make the first move. The chain was extremely difficult to walk. After walking for about an hour, they had only covered a quarter of the distance. Everyone felt like a year. The luminous warrior battle constitution could not wait. He hoped that Yiqing-han would charge into the enemy's ranks. He would definitely lead the elites to the opposite bank. What is he doing? Wu Zhongyi frowned. He could not understand what Yiqing-han was doing. Was he just showing off? Why didn't he run over? Yiqing-han's speed was very, very slow, just like a mortal walking. Even if he could not fly, he should not be so slow. Everyone was curious. Could it be that he was enjoying the moment when everyone was looking at him? The black tiger battle physique was even more puzzled. He felt that Yiqing-han was just taking a stroll. If he wanted revenge, this was the best time to rush over. He alone could sweep this place clean. However, Yiqing-han wasn't rushing over right now, and the demon god mountain battle physique was rushing over to help. He wouldn't take the initiative to attack. Stall for time. The black tiger battle physique made up his mind. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva and felt his hands ache. His face was dripping with sweat, not to mention the others. Many of the soldiers who were holding spears were trembling. Meanwhile, the half-step lords who were holding god crossbows were even more nervous. Their hands were shaking constantly. The arrows on their bowstrings could tear through the void and charge at them at any moment. It was very likely that they would misfire. "Milord, We can't keep wasting time like this. Look at the army. They're all extremely nervous and tired. A young sovereign was rather anxious. Even sovereigns couldn't handle such an atmosphere, let alone them. Bear with it. Don't let your guard down. The Sun-Moon battle physique and the astral battle physique will arrive here in 3 hours at the quickest and 4 hours at the slowest, the Black Tiger battle physique said in a low voice. Tap, tap, tap. Yi Qinghan was moving faster and faster. He was getting used to the swaying of the chains and had mastered the technique of walking quickly. His rhythm was improving. Wu stood at that moment. One of the lords lost his grip on the god crossbow in his hand due to his extreme nervousness. The arrow shot out at lightning speed, heading straight for Yi Qinghan's actual body. Who shot that? Do they have a death wish? Tiger Liang was enraged. The spear in his hand flew out and pierced the arrow that tore through the void. The arrow fell into the river. He turned his head and stared at the army behind him. His expression was extremely grim. Fortunately, he had acted quickly and shot the arrow down when it was just a short distance away from Yi Qinghan. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unthinkable. "Milord, please spare my life. I really can't take it anymore. I'm too nervous." A middle-aged half-step lord was horrified. He knelt on the ground immediately and hung his head low. He did not dare to lift his head at all. Tiger Liang watched the other half-step lords draw their longbows and crossbows fully. Indeed, they were wasting a great deal of their divine power. In addition to their nervousness, they could go off at any time. He could only say in a low voice, "All archers and god crossbow combat archers, put down your bows and arrows. However, be prepared at all times." All the half-step lords could not help but exhale. They were drenched in sweat. Although they had put down their crossbows and combat bows, they dared not let their guard down. The glow of the setting sun descended. A strong wind blew, causing their long hair to dance. Yi Qinghan had already begun running. He was already more than halfway there. The 10-odd chains swayed more and more violently. The creaking sounds were like a sudden clap of thunder that struck the heroes' Daoist hearts. Their faces turned ghastly pale. Yi Qinghan's murderous reputation was simply too well known. Over 10 years ago, he had single-handedly fought so many powerhouses. He had been attacked by the 4 combat constitutions and the Holy Lord King so many times that he had managed to survive. He had even crippled the Holy Lord King, who was still recuperating even now. In the end, his body had been pierced by Bai Yelu and the 4 combat constitutions. However, he had still managed to emerge alive. Who knew exactly how powerful his combat strength was? Who could estimate just how much of a beating he could take and how much of a beating he could take? Although Demon God Mountain had suppressed that battle, it could not be kept a secret at all. The entire chaotic universe knew about Yi Qinghan's insane battle results. "Ah! I can't take it anymore." Boom! A soldier could not withstand the oppressive aura. He stabbed the spear in his hand into the ground and wailed in agony. His mentality was almost in a state of panic. He turned around and fled. Whoosh! A sword light pierced through the void and killed the soldier who was trying to escape. The Sun-Moon combat body tore through the void and said coldly, "The Demon God Mountain doesn't need deserters. Whoever dares to escape will only end up dead." Tiger Liang was delighted to see the Sun-Moon combat physique appear. He felt somewhat uneasy facing Yi Qinghan with 2 combat constitutions, but it was still better than facing him alone. The 2 of them had gathered. There were 2 great battle constitutions and 7 ordinary overgods, making a total of 9 experts. However, none of them dared to take the initiative to attack Yi Qinghan, even though he was already close to the other side. "What should we do? Should we make a move?" Tiger Liang asked with a frown. The Sun-Moon combat physique's mouth twitched, and the sword in his hand trembled constantly. He recalled that lunatic from more than 10 years ago. It was impossible for him to say that he was not afraid. He would rather face Wuxia of the 9 Revolution Chaos Dao Physique of the Sorcerer tribe than Yi Qinghan. I don't think Yi Qinghan is the kind of person who would take the initiative to help the Sorcerer tribe. At most, he would let both of us suffer before he intervened in the war. It's almost impossible for him to make a move in advance and cause both of us to suffer in order to benefit the Sorcerer tribe. Therefore, I guess he's just making way for us. In other words, he doesn't want to fight with us at all, so I bet he won't attack us. Now, spread out and make way for him. Chapter 982. The Sun and Moon Battle Physique had fought Yi Qinghan a few times and had communicated with him. He understood Yi Qinghan's character. He was the kind of person who was unwilling to suffer losses and always wanted to interfere halfway. His combat strength was also insane. If he didn't take the initiative to attack, then whoever attacked him would definitely have nothing better to do. Tiger Liang thought about it carefully and felt that the Sun and Moon Battle Physique was right. This time, it was very likely that he was just passing through. There was no need to tangle with him. Give way, 30 meters. Tiger Liang parted his hands and opened up a path of 30 meters. The 2 battle physiques each occupied 2 paths. They watched the rapidly approaching Yi Qinghan vigilantly, feeling anxious and fearful. Yi Qinghan's hands were empty. He didn't take out the Spear of Time, nor did he take out the 7-foot berserk technique. Only his 7-foot man body pressed down on the other side of the True Dragon River. His black hair danced in the wind. The astral winds on the chains were especially powerful. The airflow in the air was also completely different, causing his battle robes to flutter loudly. Yi Qinghan could feel that this place was different from other places, especially this river. Although he couldn't use the profound mysteries of the various great Daos, he understood that this place was very dangerous just from the fluctuations of the spatial airflow. They were about 30 meters away from the shore. The gods of the demonic god mountain all retreated. The path in the middle became wider and wider. They all wanted to keep a distance from Yi Qinghan. They didn't want to touch him if they couldn't see him. The battle 13 years ago was truly too frightening. Gulp, many people couldn't help but swallow their saliva. Yi Qinghan was expressionless. He arrived at the end of the True Dragon Bridge and could step onto the ground with a single step. But he didn't. Instead, he stood on the chains and looked down at everyone. His eyes emitted a cold light that could seize people's souls. His gaze suppressed tens of millions of gazes. The people of the demonic god mountain all lowered their heads and didn't look at Yi Qinghan. This kind of pressure was like an emperor inspecting all living things. It was more like a descending war god. No one could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Tiger Liang and the Sun and Moon Battle Physique were extremely nervous. The divine swords in their hands were almost deformed. Where is the Eastern Pass region's domain gate? Yi Qinghan's voice was hoarse and emotionless. It was especially depressing. The army fell silent and lowered their heads even more, not daring to look into Yi Qinghan's deep eyes. Yi Qinghan locked his gaze on the Black Tiger combat body Liang and the Sun Moon combat body. Their gazes were also somewhat evasive. For a moment, the atmosphere was extremely awkward. A person had run into the Demon God Mountain's army and was actually so arrogant. Furthermore, the people of Demon God Mountain didn't even reply. This was simply unprecedented. Do I need to ask a second time? Yi Qinghan asked coldly. Lord God Yuan Luo, take him to the space gate. Send him wherever he wants to go, Tiger Liang said in a low voice to a middle-aged lord beside him. Lord God Yuan Luo's hair stood on end. He did not wish to walk with Yi Qinghan at all, but he did not dare go against the will of his battle constitution. He could only grit his teeth and say, Lord Yi, please follow me. Lord God Yuan Luo's body trembled slightly as he silently walked in front. Yi Qinghan did not say much. Right now, he was only relying on his aura to intimidate these experts. If a fight really broke out, there was no way he could break through the encirclement of so many people. Tap, tap, tap. His firm footsteps followed the crowd forward. Every step he took was like a stomp on everyone's heart. It was so oppressive that no one dared to breathe. Who would dare stop a god of war from passing through? The two battle constitutions looked at each other, but they did not have the courage to stop him. Back then, the four battle constitutions had joined forces, along with the Railing Leopard, the Holy Sovereign King, and Bai Yelu. So many people had not been able to stop him. If they tried to stop him now, the army would be nothing but trash. They would not be able to interfere. The two of them working together would not stand a chance against Yi Qinghan. What is he trying to do? Why can't I sense any fluctuations of divine power from him? Did he break through again and become a true primal chaos god? The Sun-Moon Battle Constitution asked in a husky voice. I can't sense any fluctuations of divine power from him either. Has the gap between our battle constitutions widened again? Tiger Liang looked at Yi Qinghan's back and felt a chill in his heart. Yi Qinghan strolled leisurely through the army. The gods in the army lowered their heads, and no one dared to look at him. Yi Qinghan did not fly, so Yuan Luo did not dare to fly either. No one understood what Yi Qinghan was doing. Was he trying to provoke them? If he wanted to provoke them, then so be it. They had to endure it. Since the battle constitutions did not say anything, the others did not say anything either. They only dared to look up at Yi Qinghan's back when he walked past them. An hour later, Yi Qinghan stepped out of the war zone. He could not help but let out a sigh of relief. Yuan Luo did not dare to say anything. He led Yi Qinghan to the gate of a city and asked respectfully, "May I ask where you are going?" "Six Paths Domain," Yi Qinghan replied indifferently. "Please enter the gate." "Leave the rest to me," Yuan Luo said with a bow. Yi Qinghan nodded. He knew Yuan Luo would not dare to act recklessly, so he stepped into the gate. Yuan Luo wished that Yi Qinghan would disappear immediately, so he could adjust the gate's location and send him away. They were still very far away from Six Paths Domain, but Yi Qinghan already felt the world spinning. He sped through the space for a long time, and the stars around him moved as if time was flowing in reverse. Currently, the Six Paths Domain and the Azura Domain had already started a comprehensive cooperation. Due to Yi Qinghan's appearance and the fierce battle with the four great bodies of the demonic god mountain, people had temporarily forgotten about the Azura King. Therefore, the Azura Domain had been developing very quickly during this period of time. The Six Paths auction house's growth had also exceeded many people's expectations. All kinds of peerless treasures emerged, and the Lord-level secret techniques were auctioned off. Blue Yao and the Celestial Battle Constitutions worked hard to find supreme treasures and auction them off, exchanging resources for resources. The arrogant sect developed quietly, and Shura Domain's reputation was undeserved. Now, Grand Monarch Shura represented Shura King in everything. Whenever there was a provocation, the arrogant sect's top experts would step in and kill the opponent. No one could come into contact with Grand Monarch Shura. As Six Paths Auction House became more and more famous, more organizations cooperated with it. Six Paths Auction House was no longer ranked 10th. Instead, it had advanced by 2 places and was now ranked 8th. Currently, the Azura squad alone in the Azura territory had 100 squads. Each squad consisted of 100 people, and the weakest Azura soldier was a half-step lord. All of them cultivated the Azura soul-seeking sword technique. However, their equipment was far from sufficient. Azura sabers, Azura masks, and Azura battle robes were insufficient. Only Yi Qinghan could forge such equipment. Even if others could, the quality would be much worse. Yi Qinghan appeared in Six Paths Domain, which he was familiar with. His appearance had alerted Six Paths Domain. They did not know that Yi Qinghan was Shura king, so they were very nervous. Even Knight Six Paths was alerted. I didn't know Master Yi was coming. Please forgive me for not coming out to greet you, Knight Six Paths said with a bow. Yes, Brother Six Paths, I'd like to enter the endless star system from Shura domain. Please allow me, Yi Qinghan said indifferently. Chapter 983. Reverend Six Paths did not dare to offend Yi Qinghan. He was a mythical being on the same level as King Shura. He was even stronger than King Shura. Please come with me, Master. Reverend Six Paths led Yi Qinghan to the space gate. However, he secretly informed Shura when he sent Yi Qinghan to Shura domain. Grand Monarch Shura ordered a team of Shura to go to the space gate to put on a show for the world. This meant that Shura domain and the insane sect did not have a good relationship. The news of Ares god of war's passage quickly spread throughout the chaotic universe. Yi Qinghan set off from Six Paths domain and entered Shura domain. Everyone was wondering if he could still pass through Shura domain. Would King Shura pass through? When Yi Qinghan arrived at Shura domain, a large number of Shura battle squad experts surrounded him. This time, it was not Yi Qinghan passing through, but the experts of Shura domain forcibly escorting Yi Qinghan out of Shura domain. This was completely different from the sorcerer race and demon god mountain escorting Yi Qinghan away. This meant that Shura domain and the insane sect did not have a good relationship. Moreover, Shura sect dared to offend Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan did not get angry. He quietly passed through Shura domain and entered the endless star system. However, the endless star system was not a huge plane. It was a star system made up of different planets. He had to fly to reach Owl War Star. Yi Qinghan arrived at the central region of the endless star system through the space gate. He entered the temple and contacted the god-slaying eagle. On Owl War Star, a divine eagle spread its wings and covered the sky. It soared 90,000 miles into the sky and broke through the clouds in an instant. Screech! A long howl, filled with joy and excitement, resounded through thousands of miles. The god-slaying eagle had not seen Yi Qinghan for a long time. It was very excited. However, Yi Qinghan's strange behavior still made some people suspicious. The endless star system was so big that it could not be a single piece of iron. There would always be enemy spies infiltrating. News of Yi Qinghan's return had spread throughout the endless star system, but he didn't fly back immediately. Instead, he mobilized the god-slaying eagle spirit pet. There was obviously something wrong with this. The experts on both sides of the true Dragon River seemed to understand. Yi Qinghan was not extremely powerful, which was why he did not have any god power fluctuations. He was not trying to cross the true dragon bridge slowly. It was because his injuries were too severe that he did not have any god power left. Otherwise, he would not have used the god-slaying eagle. Tiger Liang, the Sun-Moon combat body, and the Guanwu combat body were suddenly enlightened. All their doubts were resolved. News of Yi Qinghan's injuries quickly spread. Even though no one had any direct evidence, it was just speculation. The shaman's camp and demon god mountain did not have the energy to verify it, nor did they dare to verify it. At this moment, Yi Qinghan was clearly on the verge of exploding with rage. If their guess was wrong, it would definitely trigger Yi Qinghan's crazy revenge. Yi Qinghan went into seclusion after returning to Owl War Planet. Owl War Planet was sealed, and no news came out. Inside the insane sect, all the experts of the inner sect gathered and stared at Yi Qinghan. They wanted to see if Yi Qinghan's condition was as the rumor said. He had lost all his power and could not even mobilize the most basic god power. Yi Qinghan was silent for a long time. Then, he nodded and said, "Yes, my origin has been completely scattered. My godhood is still here, but I can no longer control it." Was it scattered in the last battle? Gu Qingyu asked with a frown. Yi Qinghan nodded. He took a deep breath and leaned back in his chair. Rushing back from the Right Spring Commandery was too tiring. He was extremely nervous. If the two camps or the 10,000 arts returned to Origin sect wanted to kill him, it would be too easy. Can it be fixed? Emperor Yi asked sadly. Yi Qinghan opened his eyes and looked at Emperor Ye's haggard face. His heart ached. He replied in a hoarse voice, "Don't worry. Even if it can't be fixed, my physical body has already become that of a king god. Ordinary kings can't do anything to me. That. Miss Bai Shaoxing." Emperor Yi hesitated. He still wanted to know where Yi Qinghan had taken her for the past 10 years. Yi Qinghan's heart felt like it was being eaten by thousands of ants. His eyebrows were twisted, and his heart was beating hundreds of times faster than before. It was like the heart of a dragon. Everyone could hear it clearly. Tap tap tap. Yi Qinghan tapped his fingertips on the chair and whispered, "She's dead. I've been with her for the past 3 years. Unfortunately, I couldn't save her life." Everyone in the inner sect was silent. Yi Qinghan didn't need to be comforted. This kind of pain could only be slowly resolved by himself. Emperor Yi lowered his head. He didn't feel happy at all. He only felt sad. If possible, he would have preferred Bai Shaoxing to be alive. He didn't want to see Yi Qinghan in such pain. Boom! Lan Yao rushed over and knelt before Yi Qinghan. She said respectfully, "Thank you, Mr. Yi, for avenging me. I can't thank you enough. If you need it, I'm willing to pay any price. Even if you want to take away my origin, it's not a problem." Yi Qinghan had been attacked by the 4 great constitutions and the railing leopard. He had appeared in a unifying sect and lost his origin. In the end, it had led to Bai Shaoxing's death. It was all because of Lan Yao. Lan Yao understood that this favor might never be repaid. "Get up. The Python monster clan has been destroyed. I don't need your origin, but I do need you to help me find all the mystical laws and great Dao boundary steels. Not a single one can be missing." Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. "Yes, Mr. Yi. I won't let you down." Although Lan Yao had taken revenge, she felt very guilty for causing Yi Qinghan to lose so much because of her hatred. There was no smile on her face. Speaking of boundary steels, the celestial treasure battle physique suddenly said, "Yi Qinghan, I have a boundary steel here. It's called the darkness boundary steel. I obtained it by chance some time ago. You can use it for the time being." Whoosh! The celestial treasure battle physique Dong Qin swiped her hand across the void. A 10-meter-tall boundary steel appeared in the hall. The mystical laws rippled out. It was filled with abstruse profundities. It was as if one was facing a dark hell. The darkness boundary steel was originally the supreme treasure of the 6 gods Dao sect. However, it had been lost for several epochs. It recorded all the mystical laws and divine abilities of the darkness boundary steel. It would take at least 100 years to fully comprehend the darkness boundary steel. Don't go out for the next few years. Leave the matter of finding the boundary steel to us. There are rumors everywhere that you have lost your origin and your godhead has shattered. Many people want to use you to establish their might. Even the new powerhouses want to challenge you. It seems that the insane sect will have a hard time in the future, Gu Qingyu said helplessly. Isolate them outside the Azura domain. I don't have the time to fight with them, nor am I interested. A cold glint flashed across Yi Qinghan's eyes as he said sternly, "Kill any over-gods who dare to enter the endless star system. That's not good. So many people are openly challenging us. It's not good if we don't accept their challenge. Why don't we use them to temper the juniors? If they want to challenge you, they must pass 3 tests. The first test is to fight the juniors of my sect. The second test is to train the powerhouses. If they can pass the second test, then arrange for the inner sect to kill them in the third test. If they don't have the ability to meet you, then no one can say anything about it, Gu Qingyu said indifferently. Yi Qinghan thought about it. This was a good idea. The insane sect and the endless star system needed stepping stones. Since they dared to come, then he would rely on them to sharpen his blade. Chapter 984. Yi Qinghan went into seclusion after taking away the boundary stone of darkness. Now that he had no divine power, even if an enemy attacked him, they would not be able to do much, even if they were a relatively powerful overgod. The endless galaxy and the insane sect did not explain whether Yi Qinghan was injured or not. They did not know whether he had really lost his origin source and his divine power. Therefore, even if many experts wanted to challenge Yi Qinghan, they had to follow the rules. If they dared to take the risk and attack the insane sect, they would be courting death. Of the two great factions, the 10,000 Arts returned to Origin sect, the most powerful elites and invincible kings emerged one after another. They headed towards the Azura region to challenge Yi Qinghan and stand on the shoulders of giants to become the second giant. However, when they arrived at the Shura territory, many of them were crippled by the Shura battle team. If they could not even pass the Shura territory, how could they enter the endless galaxy? The Shura territory was the first stage, and it was also the whetstone for the Shura battle team. The Shura battle team needed experience and battle. These powerful overgods were the best whetstones. The Shura battle team had a total of 100 teams. Many of them did not have much combat experience, especially when facing overgods. In such a crazy battle, the slightest carelessness could lead to death. Grand Venerable Shura ordered all 100 teams to stand on the front line. If they wanted to pass the Shura territory, they had to defeat one of the Shura battle teams. Invincible kings did not care about the Shura battle team. This kind of small team could deal with ordinary overgods, but they would not be able to withstand a single blow from a real invincible king. However, when they really fought, they realized that although there were only 100 people in the battle team and their cultivation base were half-step overgods, their actual combat ability and joint attack techniques were far superior to ordinary overgods. In the early stages, the Shura battle team lost more than they won. However, as time passed, the Shura battle team's combat ability became stronger and stronger. They cooperated seamlessly, and the Shura soul-seeking saber technique's joint attack was so powerful that they could instantly defeat a low-level overgod. A year later, the Azura battle team had reached the pinnacle of strength. They were still lacking in the face of true invincible kings. However, those older generation overgods were no match for them. One battle team was equivalent to one overgod. 100 battle teams were equivalent to 100 powerful overgods. The Azura domain had become a true super sect. Their overall strength was second only to the Demon God Mountain, the Wizard Tribe, and the Unifying Sect. Their overall strength was ranked 30th in the Chaos Plane. This was a very exaggerated ranking. The overall strength of the Mad Sect was only ranked 25th. In the past year, the Azura battle team had been improving, and so had the Insane Sect. Those who challenged Yi Qinghan had been eliminated by the Azura region. Then, they began to challenge the younger generation of the Insane Sect. The younger generation was led by Lin Wutian, Yi Shushan, and Yi Qintian. They were extremely powerful, and their combat power was not inferior to the older generation of the inner sect. There were more than 30 children in total, and although some had been sacrificed over the years, there were still more than 20 left. In the past year, each of them had fought at least 100 battles. More than half of them were severely injured. However, the crazy faction had taken out countless elixirs and resources. As long as they did not die, they could be saved. Their speed of improvement was extremely fast, even faster than the older generation. They had inherited the talent of their fathers, and with the resources that their fathers did not have, their strength would definitely surpass the older generation of the inner sect in the future. The challengers had to overcome all obstacles, and those who were able to survive were the real invincible kings. There was no lack of powerful rogue cultivators, and they had no background. They had indeed come for glory and challenges, and were not ordered to come by the big camps. Mu Zhuang, a very strange name, was a young expert who was only 8,000 years old. This age was common in the Chaos Plane, but there were not many over-gods who were only 8,000 years old. Yi Qinghan was more than 8,000 years old, and he was a figure of the same generation as Yi Qinghan. From the Shura region to the Endless Star System, Mu Zhuang defeated the Shura battle team, injured Yi Qintian, and finally forced Xian Yain, a terrifying existence of the older generation, to retreat. Xiaolong region, Xiaolong planet. From afar, Mu Zhuang was about 2 meters tall. He held a wooden sword in his hand, had long black hair, and wore simple clothes. He looked very dignified, and his eyes were deep, without any evil thoughts or impurities. He had not killed anyone along the way. At most, he had injured Yi Qintian, but he had not killed anyone. I want to challenge Yi Qinghan. I have no intention of fighting with others. I ask the crazy faction to respect me, Mu Zhuang. If I lose to Yi Qinghan, I am willing to submit to the crazy faction. If I win, I will leave immediately. I ask Taoist Yi Qinghan to come out and meet me. Mu Zhuang circulated his divine power, and his voice was mighty as he rushed toward Shaozhanqing. No one in the crazy faction had thought that someone could reach the last level. Not even Xian Yain could defeat him. Instead, Xian Yain lost and was forced to retreat. Mu Zhuang took advantage of the situation to directly challenge Yi Qinghan. He had already passed 3 levels. The Shura region, the crazy faction's younger generation, and the older generation had not been able to stop him. This time, even Gu Qingyu could not do anything. They looked at each other. Li Feng indifferently suggested, I am not a member of the crazy faction. I can help you kill him. Li Feng was arrogant. Until now, he had only regarded Yi Qinghan as a real opponent. Now that Yi Qinghan had lost his source energy, he did not want to challenge him anymore. He could only wait for an opportunity. Don't. Let me ask Qinghan. This Mu Zhuang has a clean background. If Qinghan can win, the strength of the crazy faction will increase. If Qinghan can't win, then we will talk about killing him. Gu Qingyu did not want such a genius to die like this. He quickly stopped Li Feng's idea. At this moment, Yi Qinghan heard Mu Zhuang's challenge on the Owl War Star. He summoned the god-slaying eagle and flew to the sky, landing on the Owl Dragon Star. When he was more than 10 meters away from the Owl Dragon Star, Yi Qinghan jumped down from the eagle's back. He looked at Mu Zhuang and calmly said, You can challenge me. We will decide the winner in one move. If you win, I will announce to the world that I have lost to you. If you lose, you will forever serve the crazy faction. Okay. Mu Zhuang replied without hesitation. Li Feng and Gu Qingyu frowned at the same time. Mu Zhuang was really strong. Otherwise, he would not have been able to force the inner sex Xian Yain to retreat. Yi Qinghan could not beat him with just his physical body. Mu Zhuang's speed, sword Dao, and profound understanding were all at the peak. He was one of the best among the kings. This person is very strong. Are you confident that you can win? Gu Qingyu had to ask through sound transmission. Let's try. If we don't accept today's challenge, who will believe in the crazy faction in the future? Yi Qinghan said indifferently, order everyone to leave. You and Li Feng will help me protect the Owl Dragon Star. Do not let the aftershocks hurt the innocent. Gu Qingyu could only nod in agreement. Fight here. It seems like you really have lost your godly power and your source energy. Fighting with you like this is meaningless. It is not a fair fight. Mu Zhuang looked around. This place was not suitable for a battle between king gods. He guessed the truth and could not help but speak coldly. Indeed, I have lost my source energy and my godly power. However, defeating you is not a problem. We will decide the winner in one move. Whoever retreats will lose. Now that I have admitted my body's condition, you have to fight whether you want to or not. Yi Qinghan said domineeringly. Chapter 985. Yi Qinghan's domineering aura soared as he stared at Mu Zhuang. Mu Zhuang was given two choices. He could choose to surrender or defeat Yi Qinghan. It was easy to challenge Yi Qinghan, but once he saw Yi Qinghan himself, he could forget about retreating. Xiaolong region was the headquarters of the insane sect. Outsiders could not enter this small region. Even if Yi Qinghan's body was crippled, the news could not spread. Yi Qinghan dared to appear and admit that his origin was crippled. Naturally, he had his own confidence. Mu Zhuang's face darkened. He did not want to fight with Yi Qinghan, but it seemed that he had no choice now. Yi Qinghan, you have lost your origin. You think too highly of yourself if you want to fight with me. Mu Zhuang reprimanded unhappily. I am already thinking highly of you if I am willing to fight. Yi Qinghan waved his hand to signal the inner sect experts to protect the four sides. His aura began to rise and the veins on his right fist bulged. Although he had lost his origin, the dragon blood was still there. At this moment it was boiling and roaring like a torrent. It was easy to tell whether an expert was real or not. A person who could be called the god of death or god of war did not have an undeserved reputation. Even without the support of his divine power, his fist alone could kill experts of the same level. Mu Zhuang instantly felt the aura of death. A strand of murderous intent locked onto his soul. No matter how hard he tried to dodge, he could not escape from Yi Qinghan's will. At this moment, he understood that Yi Qinghan had no intention of letting him go. Alright, we will decide the winner in one move. Whoever retreats will lose. Whoever takes more steps will lose. Mu Zhuang held the green short sword in his hand. It was made of pure wood and had been refined with a special method. It was sharper than a powerful master god weapon. It could pierce through a divine body in one move. Those who underestimated him would be severely injured by the wooden sword. The two of them were both gathering their power. Their terrifying aura soared into the clouds and spread out of Dragon region. Some spies couldn't enter Dragon region and could only watch from the outside. They felt the terrifying aura inside the region expanding and suppressing the heavens. They couldn't help but be shocked. Some wondered if Yi Qinghan's origin was really as rumored. Was he really crippled? Yi Qinghan's aura was like a rainbow. Although he did not have any divine power, he stood proudly on the stars like a god of war. His majestic body gave out the fiercest and invincible aura. The presence formed an attack that could destroy all of the enemy's will, crushing the enemy's will to fight. Just this presence alone was enough to suppress most overgods. Even if a person with a battle constitution was present, their will to fight would be affected. However, Mu Zhuang was indeed extraordinary. His battle intent soared into the sky, and he looked like an invincible king. He stood opposite Yi Qinghan and unleashed his aura. He was competing with Yi Qinghan for the aura of the great Tao. He was suppressing Yi Qinghan. Mu Zhuang did not understand Yi Qinghan. Otherwise, he would not have used such a method. No one could compete with Yi Qinghan in terms of aura, and no one could compete with him for the aura of heaven and earth. Unless someone like the serpent god or the sorcerer god appeared. The two auras rose and fell, suppressing each other. Yi Qinghan's aura was monstrous. His body seemed to be indomitable. He stepped toward Mu Zhuang step by step. He suppressed Mu Zhuang's aura. He did not even have the chance to use his sword. Boom, boom, boom. Step by step, Mu Zhuang's robe fluttered in the wind. Yi Qinghan's face was emotionless. His black hair danced in the wind. Mu Zhuang's face looked worse with every step he took. It was as if Yi Qinghan was stepping on his heart. This was the aura. This was the power of the aura. Other than the Chaos Giant God, no one could use the aura to such an extent. He could subdue the enemy without a fight. Hum, Mu Zhuang's firm Dao heart was trembling. The wooden sword in his hand was also trembling. It let out a long whistle and tore through the void. It seemed to be reminding its master that it was time to make a move. It was indeed time to make a move. Otherwise, Mu Zhuang would not even have the chance to make a move. He would be suppressed to death by Yi Qinghan's aura of the king. However, who would have the guts to make a move against such a king? The Owl Dragon region was dead silent. All living beings had submitted. They were all looking at the god of war in the endless star system. Who in the endless star system did not know Yi Qinghan? During the era of the War of the Emperors, he single-handedly swept away all the great emperors. With his weak mortal body, he killed countless great emperors and overturned forbidden lands. He was the synonym of invincibility. He was the god of war. There was no doubt that he would win this battle. However, everyone wanted to see how he would win. Even across the star system, the spies could feel the aura that erupted from Yi Qinghan's body. Their foreheads were sweating profusely and their bodies were trembling. There was no doubt that Yi Qinghan was not injured. The rumors in the outside world must be false. Rotten would become spring. Everyone in the inner sect thought that Mu Zhuang did not dare to make a move. However, he broke through Yi Qinghan's aura's seal and suppression. With a roar, his figure turned into a sharp sword. He pierced through the long river and attacked Yi Qinghan's main body. Mu Zhuang's sword carried vitality. It was as if this sword was not meant to kill, but to save. Facing the vitality head-on made one's heart tremble. However, the body did not want to dodge. It was as if this sword could bestow vitality to all living beings. This sword move was completely different from other sword arts. For example, Gu Qingyu's sword arts represented loneliness and coldness. Li Feng's sword arts represented supremacy and killing intent. However, Mu Zhuang's sword arts represented life. Another shortcut, another sword art. Mu Zhuang was definitely a genius among geniuses. Yi Qinghan had never seen this kind of sword aura. It was definitely a sword art created by him. Yi Qinghan wanted to subdue him even more. Otherwise, he would not have left the mountain. Although this type of sword art was powerful, it had a flaw. It lacked a true killing move. This was only a matter of time. Mu Zhuang would definitely perfect it. Yi Qinghan stomped his feet, causing the ground to crack. Not only did he not retreat to dodge, but he also rushed towards Mu Zhuang's left. His left hand grabbed Mu Zhuang's sword, his right hand grabbed Mu Zhuang's left shoulder, and his right leg grabbed Mu Zhuang's leg. His body tilted backwards and spun. His speed was as fast as lightning. He threw Mu Zhuang over his shoulder. Using Mu Zhuang's own momentum and his own strength, he threw Mu Zhuang thousands of meters away and heavily smashed into the ground. Hua! Mu Zhuang lost control of his body and flew backwards. He could not control his body at all. He scraped across the ground, creating a trail of flames as he flew tens of thousands of meters away. This was originally the lowest level of martial arts. However, Yi Qinghan had fused the heavenly dragon eagle binding hand with it. He had also fused it with the principles of Tai Chi. Its attack power was even stronger than that of a main god. This powerful killing move had been easily broken by Yi Qinghan. To an outsider, there was no powerful divine ability. The fight was also not flashy enough. It was just a simple shoulder throw. It was simply unbelievable. Mu Zhuang was stunned by the fall. He did not know how he had lost. Li Feng's mouth twitched. He did not expect Yi Qinghan to use such a method to defeat Mu Zhuang. How is this possible? How is this possible? This is the simplest martial arts technique. How can I lose to such a martial arts technique? Mu Zhuang muttered to himself. He looked at Yi Qinghan in a daze. His emotions were complicated. Chapter 986. The entire Owl Dragon Star was in an uproar. The spirits on the city wall roared and shouted the words, God of War. Their voices were louder and louder, rushing in all directions of the endless galaxy. Everyone knew that Mu Zhuang had lost and Yi Qinghan had won. Otherwise, the Owl Dragon region would not be so excited. Because the great Tao is simple. The more you cultivate, the more you understand that the most powerful divine skill is never the main secret skill or the supreme secret skill. It is the fastest speed and the most powerful power. Yi Qinghan put his hands behind his back and looked at Mu Zhuang. He said indifferently, "You can stay in the arrogant sect. I hope I am not wrong about you. Of course, you can also leave the endless galaxy. No one will stop you." After saying this, Yi Qinghan waved his hand and the god-slaying eagle landed on the ground. He then rushed onto the back of the god-slaying eagle. "Aren't you afraid that I will tell others about your injury?" Mu Zhuang frowned and asked. "What good will it do you to tell others? Maybe the two camps will extend an olive branch to you. But I can tell you that the benefits of following the arrogant sect are incomparable to those of other forces. If you are short-sighted, then leave. I don't care. Besides, do you think the two camps will dare to lead an army to attack the arrogant sect when I don't have divine power?" Yi Qinghan showed disdain and continued in a cold voice, "Let's not talk about the Shura region. Even without the Shura region, the two camps will not dare to attack the endless galaxy. I don't have divine power, but killing a king god like you is as easy as waving my hand." Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's body shook and turned into the god-slaying eagle's armor. Its huge wings covered the sky. With a gentle shake, the dust flew up. He swooped down and broke through thousands of miles. In the blink of an eye, he rushed back to the Owl Dragon region and returned to the Owl Dragon Star. Who said that one can't fly without divine power? Mu Zhuang was stunned. He did not expect the god-slaying eagle to be able to sustain Yi Qinghan's divine power. The potential of this ordinary bird was too strong. Give me an answer. I hate traitors the most. You can leave now, but if you choose to stay and betray us again, I will make you regret it, Yi Qinghan said coldly. Mu Zhuang was originally a rogue cultivator. He had no background and relied on his own efforts. He had never joined a sect because of his freedom. However, he once wanted to join the insane sect because the relationship between the inner sect members was not comparable to that of ordinary people. They had absolute freedom. Moreover, the combat strength of the inner sect members was almost the same. They were all brothers and sisters. This was something that many people envied. I'm willing to join the insane sect, Mu Zhuang replied without hesitation. When everyone heard this, they were immediately overjoyed. Even Yi Qinghan smiled. Mu Zhuang's innate talent was excellent, and he didn't lose out to anyone in the inner sect. Just the self-created spring from rotten wood was enough to prove his worth. However, what he lacked was a life-and-death battle with a true unrivaled king. If Yi Qinghan wanted to raise Mu Zhuang, he could easily turn him into an existence that was on par with Gu Qingyu and Li Feng. It was not that he was strong, but Mu Zhuang was indeed a monstrous genius. Well, if you join the insane sect, then you will be my brother and sister. I will not favor one and discriminate against the other. Let me introduce you. Yi Qinghan smiled and turned around to call the inner sect members. Zixian, Dongqin, Emperor Yi, and the others had gone out to search for treasures. Only Li Feng, Gu Qingyu, Di Longtian and the others were still here. I know these people. I have heard of their names for a long time. Mu Zhuang cupped his fists and said. Mu Zhuang greets all of you. You can call me Mu Zhuang. They were all heroes and there was no barrier between them. Mu Zhuang quickly integrated with them. Yi Qinghan nodded. The insane sect needed new blood. In this chaotic world, changes had to be made. Otherwise, they would be eliminated. Mu Zhuang, since we are brothers, let me remind you. Your rotten would become spring is indeed a classic move. However, the sharpness and murderous intent in your sword move is too little. Your speed is too slow and the lethality is too weak. Why don't you learn from brother Li Feng? We are all brothers, so there is no need to be so particular about it. Yi Qinghan said calmly. Mu Zhuang was very arrogant. Before today, he had always thought that he was the most talented and the most suitable existence for martial arts. His rotten would become spring alone could instantly kill a battle constitution. He didn't expect that in Yi Qinghan's eyes, he had so many flaws. Everyone was a genius. When they chatted, they lowered their posture to the lowest. They all had their own advantages and disadvantages, including Li Feng. They all felt that the wooden stakes had their own merits. Therefore, the group returned to Owl Fighting Star and sat down cross-legged. They carefully studied and discussed, occasionally standing up to spar. Yi Qinghan told everyone about his advantages and experience in close combat. He didn't hold anything back. How much they could improve depended on their own understanding and luck. That was his personality. He didn't hold back when he acknowledged his brothers. Moreover, in this chaotic world, no one knew if they would be alive tomorrow. Even Yi Qinghan himself couldn't guarantee it. Therefore, the stronger his brothers were, the stronger the insane sect would be. Yi Qinghan's combat skills were even inferior to Li Feng's, but Li Feng also had his own advantages, and that was his Dao. The group tested each other, attacked each other, and found weaknesses. Everyone was improving, but Mu Zhuang's improvement was indeed fast. His talent and wisdom were a cut above the others, otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to create vitality in his sword moves. Yi Qinghan didn't have any divine power, so he could only help them by demonstrating. After chatting for about 2 hours, he was very tired and was about to go back to cultivate. Suddenly, a sword aura cut through the void and appeared in the center of Owl Dragon domain. He couldn't be more familiar with that sword aura. He couldn't help but be furious. Bai Yelu. Yi Qinghan, get the hell out here. My daughter is dead. How dare you live? An angry roar resounded through the clouds. The sword aura destroyed 10,000 li of spacetime and approached Owl War Planet. It couldn't be easier for a powerful overgod to sneak in here. Now, they were only glad that Bai Yelu didn't go crazy and kill the innocent creatures in the endless star system. Perhaps he didn't dare because he also had a super sect behind him. If he dared to take revenge, so did Yi Qinghan. Swoosh! Yi Qinghan's body trembled, and the god-slaying eagle and armor transformed. Its huge wings flapped the sky, causing the space to collapse. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan soared into the sky, and his eyes were full of murderous intent. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! More than 10 figures from the insane sect rushed into the void and blocked Bai Yelu outside Owl War Planet. The group landed on a dead planet and glared at each other with deep hostility. You still have the face to look for me? You still have the face to come out and take revenge for Saint Xiaosheng? Yi Qinghan's voice was cold and emotionless. He roared hoarsely, Bai Yelu, if I didn't promise Saint Xiaosheng that I wouldn't take revenge on myriad arts return to one sect, do you think you can still stand here alive? He. Ha ha ha, Yi Qinghan, if it wasn't for you, how could we have differences? How could we be separated by life and death? This is all thanks to you. Since Saint Xiaosheng was willing to die for you, you should be buried with her. Die. Bai Yelu sneered and drew his sword to attack Yi Qinghan. Chapter 987. Bai Yelu was like a madman. He killed his own daughter with his own hands. His Tao heart couldn't bear it and endured more than 10 years of lightning punishment in the lightning punishment cave. Now, he only wanted to kill Yi Qinghan to answer to Bai Shaoxing and himself. Swish! Li Feng and the others stood in front of Yi Qinghan and stared coldly at Bai Yelu. As long as Yi Qinghan said the word, no matter how strong Bai Yelu was, he would die here today. Scram! This is between me and Yi Qinghan. Bai Yelu roared. Should we kill him? Gu Qingyu turned to look at Yi Qinghan. He knew that this person was Yi Qinghan's father and also the person who killed Bai Shaoxing. This matter could only be decided by Yi Qinghan himself. Yi Qinghan's eyes were emotionless. It wasn't that he didn't want to kill Bai Yelu, but he promised Bai Shaoxing not to take revenge on the 10,000 arts returned to one sect and not to kill Bai Yelu. He owed Bai Shaoxing too much. Not to mention that life, just the feelings he owed Bai Shaoxing could never be repaid. All of you, step aside. I will deal with this matter myself. Yi Qinghan said calmly. Everyone dispersed without hesitation. They knew Yi Qinghan well. He was definitely not someone who would throw his life away. Yi Qinghan and Bai Yelu looked at each other from 100 meters away. Their eyes were filled with anger and killing intent. Yi Qinghan, why are you still alive? She is already dead. Why do you still have the face to live? Bai Yelu asked angrily. You should ask yourself this. I promised her not to kill you and not to take revenge on the 10,000 arts returned to one sect. Otherwise, do you think you will have the chance to see me again? Yi Qinghan coldly replied. Where is Bai Shaoxing buried? I'm going to take your head to pay tribute to her. Bai Yelu roared angrily. Yi Qinghan clenched his fists and flapped his wings, causing the entire Death Star to tremble and wail. Liquan Prefecture, Lihua Garden. If you can kill me, then bury me there. Today, I will give you a chance. This is the only chance. The next time we meet, I will definitely destroy you. Hoo hoo hoo. Strong gales rose, rolling up the sand and stones. The murderous aura shrouded the dead star, and the magma inside the dead star was surging. Bai Yelu's murderous intent grew thicker and thicker. The madness in his eyes had almost taken over his rationality. He had already gone mad. At least, he was no longer a normal person. Ding! All techniques returned to one. Boom! Bai Yelu pierced through the void with the divine sword in his hand. In the blink of an eye, he pierced through Yi Qinghan's location. The phantom image shattered, but it was only a phantom image. Yi Qinghan soared into the air and dodged Bai Yelu's attack. Then, he circled behind Bai Yelu and threw a punch at his back. Whoosh! Bai Yelu's sword missed and didn't even touch the ground. He turned around and slashed at his back. The sword rainbow pierced through the river and went deep into the wilderness. Ding ding ding. The sword momentum was like a rainbow, constantly brushing past Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan's figure kept dodging in the air. The sword chi pierced through the feathers of the god-slaying eagle's wings. Black feathers danced in the air and scattered all over the mountains and rivers. The sword chi pierced through the divine robes. It was a ghastly sight. If Yi Qinghan was slightly slower, he would have died on the spot. Zhu Xiong clenched his fists. Li Feng and Gu Qingyu kept fiddling with the hilts of their swords. Their eyes were fixed on the battlefield, ready to attack at any time. Yi Qinghan kept sticking close to the sword light, trying to get closer to Bai Yelu. Without the support of divine power, it was impossible to hurt him from a distance. The god-slaying eagle could only maintain his basic flight. Swish swish swish. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The two of them sped through the air, exchanging blows. Yi Qinghan was constantly suppressed because he couldn't use his strength to fight head-on. Die for me. Bai Yelu was indeed the ultimate existence of the older generation. He was a terrifying giant god who could control the unifying sect. Yi Qinghan didn't have the support of divine power and couldn't fight against him at all. His sword moves were exquisite, blocking all paths of retreat for Yi Qinghan. Divine power poured out. His left fist shattered space and crashed toward Yi Qinghan's heart. There was no way to retreat. He could only fight head-on with his fist. Yi Qinghan gritted his teeth and punched out with his iron fist. He relied entirely on his physical body to attack Bai Yelu. Boom! The two fists collided. One had the power of a sovereign, the other had the physical body. The advantage was immediately apparent. Yi Qinghan was like a kite with its string cut. He smashed viciously into the Death Star, his wings nearly broken. Yi Qinghan, in order to protect the god-slaying eagle, could only retract his wings. Without his wings blocking him, his flying speed increased by tens of times. Boom! Hua! Yi Qinghan smashed into the ground, creating a long dragon of flames. The deep crack seemed to pierce through the stars. I want you to die. Bai Yelu exploded. He sped through the void, chasing after Yi Qinghan's body. His sword traversed tens of thousands of kilometers as he attacked Yi Qinghan's physical body. Yi Qinghan's hair stood on end. His forehead was covered in sweat. His right hand trembled as he howled, "Zhongquan! Come out!" But Zhongquan couldn't hear his call at all. He still couldn't control his divine power. A person without a quintessence couldn't control a divine spark. He was just a piece of trash. Roar! Yi Qinghan was forced into a dead end. He roared angrily as his dragon blood boiled. The dragon scales on his body rose up, covering his fist and body. Even his face was covered. At this moment, he was like a ferocious spirit. His terrifying eyes were completely scarlet red. Hua! Yi Qinghan's right arm's veins popped out. His blood vessels could be seen clearly. The dragon scales protected his blood vessels and slowly overlapped, completely protecting his physical body. Boom! Yi Qinghan clenched his iron fist and charged towards Bai Yelu's divine sword with the power of the giant dragon. Boom! Bang! The dragon fist and the divine sword collided. The power of the giant dragon exploded with a flaming aura and fiercely clashed with the divine sword. PFFF. Yi Qinghan's vital energy and blood surged as he spat out a mouthful of essence blood. The tip of his foot crushed the ground. The stars under his feet cracked as he frantically retreated. He spread his wings again and flapped them in the sky, trying to stabilize his body. But the impact was too strong. The god-slaying eagle couldn't save the situation at all. Without a quintessence, the divine bird was now locked in the sea of consciousness. It couldn't come out at all, let alone the little golden crow, the multicolored snake, and the star-twisting vine. Yi Qinghan could only rely on himself now. As he retreated, he saw Bai Yelu's eyes were red. He was like a ferocious beast that had gone berserk. He held the sword with both hands and charged towards Yi Qinghan without any emotion. He crushed half of the mountains and rivers with one step. Dead stars exploded, and flames and lava spewed out, isolating the clouds. Swish! Yi Qinghan's hand swiped and rolled up the lava. With a wave of his hand, the lava turned into armor and flames into a robe. He reached out with both hands to grab Bai Yelu's divine sword. Pist that Yi Qinghan grabbed the sword with his hands. But the sword was too fast. It was so fast that even Yi Qinghan couldn't stabilize it. He kept retreating. The sword pierced through the lava and stabbed into the divine robe of flames. The two of them were half a meter apart. They coldly stared at each other, not giving an inch. Yi Qinghan's black hair danced wildly. It was like a steel needle piercing through the void. The sword in Bai Yelu's hand pierced through all of Yi Qinghan's defenses and stabbed into his body. Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched. Blood flowed out. He held the sword tightly with both hands. His body was slightly bent as he stared into Bai Yelu's eyes. "I didn't expect your quintessence to really be scattered." Bai Yelu grinned bitterly. It wasn't clear whether he was mocking or pitying Yi Qinghan. Chapter 988. Bai Yelu and Yi Qinghan were standing face to face. They were so close that their eyes were staring at each other. Killing intent shot out as they opposed each other with equal harshness. Yi Qinghan's source energy was no longer concealed. Bai Yelu didn't know whether to be happy or sad. For the sake of the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger, his daughter's life was lost. Yi Qinghan's source energy was also scattered by him. Right now, he was no different from a cripple. Back then, was that sword right or wrong? Bai Yelu was at a loss. He asked himself, was the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger worth all this? If the source energy is gone, I can still find it. But if Sage Xiao is dead, can he still come back alive? Yi Qinghan asked with a hoarse voice. This sentence struck Bai Yelu's Dao heart. His body trembled and the sword in his hand almost fell out of his hand. You don't understand the purpose of cultivation. You really don't. Although the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger is powerful and important, what is your purpose for obtaining it? Isn't it for cultivation and to protect your family's inheritance? But what did you do? Yi Qinghan's voice was powerful as he reprimanded sternly. You don't understand emotions. Your cultivation in this life will stop here. After living for so long, you don't even know the purpose of cultivation. Don't you find it ridiculous? Yi Qinghan asked angrily. Shut up. If not for you, would she have blocked that sword without hesitation? Bai Yelu crazily tried to pierce Yi Qinghan's body with his sword, but the scales on Yi Qinghan's hands were pierced. He still couldn't break through Yi Qinghan's defense. Zeng! Zeng! Yi Qinghan kept retreating. The lava armor on his body kept shattering and the dead star completely collapsed. Whoosh! 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 The huge wings flapped crazily and the space-time turbulence was shattered. However, it couldn't stop the momentum of his defeat. Ding! 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 Li Feng and Gu Qingyu almost couldn't hold on any longer. The speed at which they moved the sword hilt became faster and faster. Return the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger to me. Bai Yelu roared. Yi Qinghan replied indifferently, he's buried. He's buried with Shaoxing. Bai Yelu's attack speed suddenly dropped. He did not expect Yi Qinghan to have buried the giant god's divine ability, and buried it beside his own daughter. It seems that I really don't understand. I don't love her as much as you do. Bai Yelu took a few steps back dispiritedly, his hair disheveled. He killed Bai Shaoxing for the sake of the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger, and Yi Qinghan actually used the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger to accompany Bai Shaoxing in death. This was the difference. No matter how powerful a secret technique was, in Yi Qinghan's eyes, it could not compare to family, friendship, and love. Was I wrong? Bai Yelu hugged his head and roared. Yi Qinghan slowly pulled out the divine sword from the scale and threw it back to Bai Yelu. Shaoxing asked me to pass on a message to you. Yi Qinghan whispered. Bai Yelu suddenly stared at Yi Qinghan. Red light burst out from his eyes as he roared, what did she say? Did she regret it? She said that she did not blame you for that heartless sword. Instead, she thanked you for giving her the most beautiful 3 years. Yi Qinghan said calmly. Bai Yelu heard this and his body trembled. He whispered, where is the right spring prefecture? I want to see her. 18 Western Pass domains. Don't even think about destroying her grave. Don't indiscriminately hurt the innocent there. This is my last warning to you. If you cross my bottom line, I want you to die. Yi Qinghan said firmly. Bai Yelu heard this and turned to leave. His figure flickered as he quickly left the Owl Dragon region and the Endless Star System. Seeing Bai Yelu leave, Li Feng and Gu Qingyu's eyes were filled with killing intent. However, if Yi Qinghan did not kill them, they did not make a move. Yi Qinghan returned to the Owl Warstar alone. His emotions were very complicated. Now that he had no divine power, he was just a piece of trash. Without the support of divine power, he could only rely on time to comprehend the dark law boundary steals. This kind of time-consuming cultivation was very difficult for him to calm down. Is there really no divine medicine that can restore my origin? Even if it can temporarily restore my origin, it will be fine. Yi Qinghan frowned. Now that he had no origin, the divine bird and the other spiritual pets were suppressed in his sea of consciousness and could not come out. They could not help in the battle. If the divine bird was here, it could at least give some advice. No matter how strong his brain was, he could not do anything when he knew nothing about the medicinal properties of the divine medicine. Sitting in front of the dark law boundary steel, Yi Qinghan immersed himself in comprehension. There were no distracting thoughts in his mind. Every profound symbol had to be carefully comprehended. As time passed, the secluded room did not know how long it had been, but several years had passed in the outside world. Bai Yelu traversed millions of miles and swept through small regions. No one dared to provoke him. Even when he passed by the war zone, his madness made the battle physique choose to avoid him. Bai Yelu had gone mad. Everyone was spreading the news. The upper echelons of the Demon God Mountain and the Shaman race had ordered that no one was to provoke this madman. He was allowed to traverse the war zone alone. Both camps gave way to him. The Guanwu battle physique even personally escorted him to the Western Pass Prefecture. Then, he rushed to the Right Spring Prefecture. The pear blossoms in the Right Spring Prefecture had withered. The huge spiritual pears were brimming with spiritual qi. Ordinary mortals would be able to strengthen their bodies and prolong their lives after eating them. In this season of harvest, many commoners were plucking pears. However, no one plucked the pears on top of the grave. They were left to fall. The lonely grave was covered in mud. If it were not for the towering tombstone, no one would know it was a grave. The runes on the tombstone were dim and lusterless. They looked like they would shatter upon contact. However, some outsiders tried to open the grave when Yi Qinghan left, but they were injured by the runes. Coupled with the people of the Right Spring Prefecture stopping them, the matter was left unsettled. Everyone in the Right Spring Prefecture knew Bai Shaoxing. After all, Yi Qinghan had lived here with her for 3 years. When they plucked pears, many children were very respectful towards the grave. Even adults would bow and pay their respects when passing by. On this day, an uninvited guest came to the Right Spring Prefecture. It was Bai Yelu. He was like a madman. Half of his black hair was now white. He was in a mess. His eagle-like eyes scanned the sky and found Bai Shaoxing's tombstone. Ding-dot-boom. No one knew what Bai Yelu was thinking. He attacked the tombstone. The sword aura was activated and destroyed the rocks near the tombstone. The moment it touched the tombstone burst out with a divine light. It carried the terrifying Great Tao principle to counterattack and soared to the stars. Bang! Bai Yelu was hit by the aftershock. His divine sword was almost broken. He stepped on the stone floor and was forced to retreat dozens of feet. The battle robe on his body was torn and his flesh was almost scattered. The tombstone carried a terrifying murderous aura. Bai Yelu had to be careful. The people of the Right Spring Prefecture were alarmed. They were angry. You are so unreasonable. How can you attack someone's grave and disturb their sleep? That's right. How can you be so uncultured? Tomb robbing is something that a bunch of ignorant children do. Our right spring prefecture does not welcome you. Leave the right spring prefecture. The people who were plucking spirit pears in the pear garden stopped him and shouted. Bai Yelu's eyes flashed coldly. He glanced at the crowd and said with a hoarse voice, "This is my daughter's grave. I will bring her back to the ancestral land." Boom! Bai Yelu turned his hand and slashed again. The sword aura crushed everything on the tombstone. Soil flew everywhere. However, when the sword aura touched the tombstone, it was immediately rebounded. The impact was even stronger than before. It was more lethal. Bai Yelu was sent flying hundreds of meters away. Chapter 989. Bai Yelu attacked a few more times, but he was sent flying by the runes. His divine energy poured out, and a sword rainbow pierced through the void. At this moment, the divine doctor who saved Bai Yelu 3 years ago appeared again. He looked like an immortal, and his white robe fluttered in the wind. He couldn't help but sigh when he saw Bai Yelu's angry actions. "Young man, you've gone mad," the divine doctor said calmly. Bai Yelu didn't know how many years he had lived in this world, and there weren't many people who dared to call him a young man. However, the divine doctor said it so easily. Bai Yelu turned around indifferently, and his eyes glowed red. He stared at the old divine doctor, and slowly, the red light in his eyes dissipated, and there was some doubt in his eyes. "The dead are gone, young man, why disturb the rest of the dead? At this moment, your Tao heart is in a mess, and you don't know what's right or wrong. Why don't you calm down and think about it?" The old divine doctor said calmly. "I didn't do anything wrong." Bai Yelu shouted angrily. "Since you didn't do anything wrong, why are you so stubborn? Why are you so crazy?" The old divine doctor continued to ask. Bai Yelu was silent. Right or wrong, there was a balance in his heart. He might have been wrong about that sword, but he didn't regret it because he thought that it was for the sake of the unifying sect. Killing Yi Qinghan would cut off the hope of a super existence being born. It wouldn't break the deadlock, and it would be beneficial to everyone. The only mistake was that Bai Shaoxing shouldn't have blocked that sword. You don't understand the emotions of a human. Your starting point might be right, but your actions are wrong. The old divine doctor sighed. Bai Yelu stared at the old man and asked coldly, "Who are you?" The old man didn't answer Bai Yelu's question, and walked slowly to Bai Shaoxing's tombstone. He reached out and grabbed a few spirit pears from afar, and placed them on the tombstone. With a wave of his hand, the dirt that was sent flying returned to its original state. Who I am is not important. What's important is that you don't understand emotions. If you understood everything, you wouldn't need to know my name. The old man said hoarsely. Trying to act mysterious in front of me? You're courting death. Bai Yelu was furious, and he raised his sword to stab the old man's back. The sword chi soared through the air and directly hit the old man's back. However, the old man's white robe fluttered and the sword chi dissipated. He slowly turned around and a silver needle the length of a middle finger appeared in his hand. It was as thick as a strand of hair and was almost negligible. The silver needle was gently pushed forward and pressed against Bai Yelu's divine sword. The seemingly ordinary strike actually dissipated Bai Yelu's destructive attack. Bai Yelu's pupils constricted. He withdrew his sword and retreated a few steps. He looked at the old man in disbelief. He looked at the silver needle and seemed to have thought of something. You are medical god Ji Shintian? Bai Yelu frowned and asked. I didn't expect anyone to remember this old man's name. I've almost forgotten it myself, the old man replied indifferently. Since you're here, why don't you save my daughter? Aren't you the godly doctor who can revive the dead? Bai Yelu suddenly became furious and roared. Ji Shintian shook his head and said hoarsely, you should know her injuries the best. She was originally a person who was bound to die. If that little fellow didn't give up his origin and used pure sunlight to save her for 3 years, she would have died. This old man is only a medical god, not a supreme god or the ruler of the universe. How could I save someone who was bound to die? Yi Qinghan gave up his origin to save her. Bai Yelu was shocked. It was not easy to cultivate to Yi Qinghan's level. Losing one's source was worse than death. Yi Qinghan was willing to give up his source to save his daughter for 3 years. If it was him, he wouldn't give up his origin for Bai Shaoxing either. Yes, he could have recovered his origin back then. What a pity. If I had his courage back then, I wouldn't have ended up in such a situation. He saw further than me and wouldn't regret it for the rest of his life. This old man saved the world, but it was difficult to save my own Tao heart. I can only stay in this rural area for the rest of my life. Ji Shintian sighed. Only now did Bai Yelu know how much Yi Qinghan had given up for Bai Shaoxing. He had even given up his god power in exchange for 3 years. As a father, he was ashamed of his inferiority. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but sit on the ground dispiritedly with a face full of guilt. Can his origin be recovered? Bai Yelu asked hoarsely. I told him that unless he can successfully forge the 9-revolution chaotic Tao body, he can't recover his origin. But I can tell you that he has no chance. That chance is negligible. Even if he can forge the 9-revolution chaotic Tao body, the chance of recovering his origin is only 1 in 10,000. Ji Shintian said truthfully. I was the one who harmed them. I was really wrong, I didn't understand. Senior Divine Doctor, I was so wrong. Bai Yelu cried out in guilt, like a child who had made a mistake. He covered his head between his legs, looking very pitiful. The truth is already done, there's nothing to feel guilty about. His body has become a saint, and he also has the bloodline of the giant dragon. The power of the giant dragon hasn't dissipated, so he can't be considered a cripple. This might be the will of the heavens. Ji Shintian shook his head and consoled, go back, don't disturb her rest anymore. She left peacefully and happily, happier than anyone in the world. I have been searching for the right and wrong of the past all these years, and it was the 2 of them who gave me the answer. You can't destroy this tomb, otherwise, don't blame this old man for being angry. The mountains and rivers where the pear blossoms fell were so desolate. Bai Yelu stood up dispiritedly and slowly walked into the distance. Azura Domain, Grand Monarch Shura received Venerable 6 Paths. He learned that the 6 Paths auction house was preparing to hold a grand auction with several over-god-level supreme treasures. He hoped that Azura Domain could cooperate with the publicity and attract more experts to take out more treasures. This would make the 6 Paths auction house even more famous and completely suppress the other auction houses. By the end of the year, it would at least squeeze into the top 5 auction houses. Grand Monarch Shura thought for a moment and nodded in agreement. Over the past decade, Azura Domain had relied on the 6 Paths auction house to develop rapidly, saving at least 1,000 years of development time. In just a little more than a decade, Azura Domain had developed into one of the top 30 superpowers of the chaotic universe. Now, it was time to repay the favor. Go back and prepare. The auction will be held at the beginning of spring next year. At that time, there will be no less than 10 over-god level supreme treasures, including over-god weapons, over-god level secret arts, and divine abilities, Grand Monarch Shura said calmly. Thank you, King Shura. Venerable 6 Paths looked at Yi Qinghan's battle robes in awe. However, he was in awe of King Shura, not Grand Monarch Shura. After Venerable 6 Paths left, Grand Monarch Shura secretly returned to Owl Warstar and found Yi Qinghan. He told him about Venerable 6 Paths' request. Yi Qinghan opened his eyes slightly and exhaled a turbid breath. He nodded and said, go prepare. I will think of a way to deal with the over-god level secret arts. It just so happens that I am looking for some treasures to see if they can repair my origin. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.